Hey guys, what's up? It is week 155. This is, last week was the end of the dive into 1985. I'm going to do my top 25 at the very end of this video. It'll be short and brief and very, very little details. That's because we shot the top 10 of 1985. I shot it over at the 22 Shots and Moods and Horror podcast. That's up now and live. We also shot an extended list for the, 11 through 25. A few of us did. So that's also on their Patreon about right now. So you'll be able to see that. So basically, I'm going to shoot a very quick list at the end of this. Dive into 1985 has ended. And now there's going to be a run through 91. That's the next year we drew. I always do a top 10 show on there. They draw years. I've been doing it for a little bit. This is the first actual retro year I've done. I've done a 2019, top 10 of 2019. And I've done a retro year. I'll probably be doing the retro years from now on. So this channel will be flooded with whatever the hell I have to watch for, 85. Well, it was 85, now it's 91. I think JP was the one who kind of coined the term, the run through 91. So, also I want to make a correction here. When I was diving through 85, there's a couple, titles that actually Frog Dreaming was 86. So if somebody suggested I watch that one, I did. It was 86. So it really not technically a dive into 85. So I guess we're going to start this off with a review from Arrow Films. And I gotta admit, I kind of half-assed this as far as features are concerned. I just watched the movie because I was really eager to get into my 91 views. So I picked this up. It is the Beyond the Door release from Arrow. Man, this baby is a deluxe edition. I really should have watched the features. So basically just going to make some brief comments about the movie itself. Like I said, this actual release is loaded. I'll go through that. It has a whole new documentary on the 2-disc version that has, interviews with a bunch of people that were involved in Italian Exorcist ripoffs and a bunch of experts as well. That's feature length, so that's pretty impressive. There's also an audio commentary with the director, who's also a pretty famous, crazy producer. I'll probably mispronounce his name, but it is Ovidio Asantes. He also directed The Visitor and Tentacles, which is a wild movie. So yeah, this one is definitely a crazy movie. Also, like I said, the features are riddled. Like there's also another interview with him. There's a Scott Spiegel moderated kind of archival interview. So it's loaded. So if you like the movie, definitely pick this release up. There's two versions of it on here, an extended, kind of, I think, international cut, and then the American theatrical cut, which is shorter. So, Beyond the Door is an Exorcist ripoff that kind of inspired a weird franchise of its own, movies that are unrelated. Amok Train, Beyond the Door 3, and I think even Shock, the Mario Bava movie, ended up in that franchise, as maybe Beyond the Door 2. They're not really related, okay? So here we go. Beyond the Door. This is such a weird movie. It follows the story of a couple who, have a couple kids. They seem to be fairly successful. She, of course, gets pregnant, and, it kind of ties in with a doctor who sold his soul to the devil, played by Richard Johnson. And I don't even know how to go about explaining the plot of this movie in detail. I'm kind of lost for words, but it's essentially an Exorcist ripoff. She starts to develop quicker than she should, the pregnancy and everything like that. Richard Johnson, in the opening of this movie, they kind of set up his character that he was someone who was basically plagued to die, and he sold his soul for a longer life, but he must partake in this kind of birth of the Antichrist, which is what, so it's a little different from The Exorcist. So what is the lead here is pregnant with is the Antichrist. The funny things about this movie is that there's obvious, foreshadowing or metaphor. Like one of the kids that the couple has is always drinking like pea soup out of a can. So you're like, we know where that's going later on in this movie. There's going to be some references to green puke, and of course there is. And the kids in this are awful. Like the kids are using the F word, they're cussing people out, they're saying awful things. And besides that, a lot of the standard kind of possession things where she gets violent at times and gets angry. There's arguments between a real scientist, a real doctor, and everything like that. And the husband's kind of caught in the middle where he doesn't know how to save his wife, if he should follow, the trust of this weird guy that used to date her and Richard Johnson, or go for something else. The ending of the movie is absolutely ridiculous as well. In fact, this whole movie is kind of ridiculous. And like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Exorcist movies, the ripoff kind of deals. The original is obviously a classic, but as far as like another subgenre that I've never been too fond of, it is the kind of Exorcist kind of cash-ins. Although being Italian makes it a little bit more shameless to me at how they do their movies, and a little bit more bonkers and fun, and it has a little bit more, style to it and filmmaking aspects. I'm not gonna lie, there's a couple moments where I laughed out loud at it because the kid would be like, "Fuck you, mom," and stuff like that. Even they're not even possessed; they're just asshole kids, and just a weird idiot. The weird things the kids do, like Indio can. I can't even say that word right now. I'm an idiot, okay? But just a weird kind of like details in the personalities of the kids. The dubbing's kind of funny as well. So, like I said, it looks really good. They cleaned it up. The sound's good. I do enjoy the music, if I remember correctly. I very rarely come across an Italian film that I'm like, this music's terrible. Usually, it's always pretty solid, pretty good. So, Beyond the Door, it's enjoyable, but it's really weird and kind of bizarre. Like I said, definitely the highlight of this release is the features itself. It looks like they went all in, and unfortunately I did not watch them, but I just wanted to kind of talk about this one a little bit because I did have the old Code Red release, never watched that. Had the DVD, had the Blu-ray, and then I had another Blu-ray. So it was like, it's time to watch Beyond the Door. You've bought the thing 3 times, okay? So yeah, that is from Arrow Films. So check it out if it sounds like it's up your alley. Always a plus to have Richard Johnson, who is in Zombie, of course, and a slew of other movies. So yeah.
I've been waking up suddenly in the middle of the night.
Your symptoms have alarmed me from the very first visit.
No doctor can possibly explain her pregnancy.
Sometimes I get so hostile and violent. I can hardly contain myself.
Jessica's the victim of a power whose strength is beyond your comprehension.
I don't want to have this baby, Robert.
The child must be born.
I suppose everybody else is supposed to be scared.
Are you? Sure you, he will be born.
I smell the stench of your rotting flesh.
No one will help you. I know you're sad. There's no hope. There's no hope. There might be someone who can help.
Okay, we have one here directed by Dan Bush, put out by Dark Sky Films, and this is The Dark Red. And I didn't know much about this one. I just put this in, and it starts off with a woman who obviously has some psychological problems. She seems to be in an insane asylum, and she's kind of being interviewed. I believe this is how it starts. It's been a while, trust me. I watched 17 movies this week. So she's being interviewed, excuse King. She's being interviewed with there's this doctor, and they're going about this whole thing that happened to her. So it kind of has a flashback storyline where she starts to talk about it. But then it's kind of got a nice narrative because, like I said, it starts off in this insane asylum at points. Well, it actually opens up, I think, with this weird kind of woman being dead in a trailer, and these people come pick her up, and then it kind of flash forwards, and you realize this woman went through some traumatic experiences, and you start to dig deeper whether she's crazy or not, or it really happened. And it's that kind of story. And that could be, kind of obvious or poorly done, but the acting really helps this one. The acting in this movie is tremendous, especially by the lead. She's basically claiming that her child was stolen from her, that she gave birth and it was stolen from her, and that's just, that there was this weird cult. And it sounds like the delusions of a paranoid schizophrenic. So that's where you start to suggest that this possibly is happening, but there's a couple reveals, and then eventually you kind of dig deeper and you start to see things differently. And man, if I go any further, I will definitely spoil this movie, but it comes down to the thing at one point in the movie, is she crazy or is she not? And that determines on what happens next. But I thought that it got bigger as it went on, and I thought it was really well satisfying. And I think at parts it feels kind of like a Scanners movie, which I really like, the kind of story of Scanners and underground kind of societies manipulating things and developing using and kind of sucking the possibly superpowered people. But she claims that they're after her blood, and all sorts of weird things happen and go on. But her performance is just great. How she gets under the skin of the doctor and how she starts screaming and yelling. I just thought that I see so many movies where a poor performance like could ruin this movie, but the acting is so solid, and the way the story unfolds, the script structure is really kind of a highlight in it because it's not straightforward. And if it was straightforward, it would still be pretty decent. But the way it unfolds, and I feel like another movie this week kind of does that too, that I'm going to be talking about, where it's somewhat of a flashback, but that one's more of a flashback and kind of framed in a flashback. This one I feel like it starts in somebody talking about the story, and then it actually catches up, and it's what happens after the stay at the hospital, which I like. So I would recommend checking out Dark Red. The DVD unfortunately doesn't have any special features, but I was fairly impressed with it. Dan Bush had directed part of The Signal, the anthology, which is a pretty good movie, and he also did The Vault, which came out and had James Franco, and it was kind of like a horror movie crime heist, which is fairly decent as well. I think this one's a little better. I thought the acting brought it up a notch, and I thought that it paid off at the end too. That's The Dark Red.
I've read your file. I'd like to hear you tell your own story. I don't need another therapist. I need to leave. I was 8 months pregnant. What happened? My baby was taken.
Sybil?
Your baby died. What I'm telling you, it's the truth. Extreme early childhood trauma, extensive history of mental illness, and psychotic delusions. I know you gotta be sick of being held against your will. Not for long. It's her. Sybil, are you hearing anything? Or seeing anything out of the ordinary?
Okay, the next one here is a sequel to Train to Busan, or the prequel called Seoul Station, and double meaning there, pretty clever. And this one I watched on Shudder. I was just like, oh, I'm going to put this on. I was skimming, and I was like, oh, let's watch this. Animated movie, prequel to Train to Busan, why not? And I started watching it, and I didn't think I was going to finish it, but before long, I actually was caught up in it, and I started to really kind of somewhat be intrigued to the story. Okay, so what we have here is it's kind of following three characters. A girl who is kind of forced into prostitution, who got out of it, who's down on her luck, kind of an alcoholic, who's dating kind of an internet geek who's also a really big piece of shit, trying to pressure her back to prostitution so they can make some money, and the girl's father who's trying to find her during this whole thing. You guys remember Train to Busan, a big zombie outbreak, very heartfelt, amazing, big, epic zombie movie. Fantastic, one of the best films that came out that year. So I was kind of looking forward to this one. The animation's a little shoddy, to be honest. Like, they'll duplicate animation. Like, there'll be a character in the foreground, and then there'll be one in the backgrounds doing the same thing. And for a sequel to one of the biggest North Korean movies ever, or South Korean, it's kind of a lackluster. I mean, I can't believe that this movie wouldn't have a decent budget. Maybe it did, but they did terrible with it. I don't know. The animation was shoddy to me. Didn't look particularly great, but I can get over that. So it's kind of a story, like I said, about two people trying to find this girl, the boyfriend and the father. They definitely have a horror, because the father ends up tracking her somehow and sees like an internet, advertisement for her to be sold. So he gets upset and tries to find her, finds the boyfriend. They're separated at the time. The boyfriend and girlfriend is having a fight. So it's basically a zombie apocalypse or zombie epidemic happening while they're trying to find each other over the city. It kind of reminded me of the Dead 2, which was the sequel to The Dead by the Ford brothers. The Dead's a really good movie. Dead 2 is good too, and it takes place in India. The girl and the boy separate, trying to find each other. But it also has that kind of hardcore feeling with George C. Scott, where the father's trying to find his daughter in the prostitution kind of world. Although that's a much better movie, and so is the Dead movies. So this one progresses, and the thing I didn't really care for is in Train to Busan, when the zombies turn, there is such a good thing where the characters, I feel like they start to repeat like something that's stuck in their brain, like never had an accident, the taxi cab driver, and I was like, that's such a cool way to show that these have some sort of humanity left within the zombies, kind of just a different way to kind of encase what Romero was saying with the zombies. But I thought they did that really well in Train to Busan. Also, what I thought was really good in Train to Busan was, besides, you know, the emotional attachment to the characters, because they were good characters and they were like two-dimensional, and you felt the connections. And this one, and I'm not saying this because she's a prostitute and she's down on her luck or anything like that, she's just rather dumb, and she gets a lot of people killed, and I find her rather unpleasant. Her boyfriend is even worse because he's going to push her into prostitution. He's also a wimp. He's also stupid. And there's a reveal with one of the other characters that just makes the only likable person in the entire movie the most despicable. And it's not deep. It's not meaningful. And where the twist happens, they forget something else within the movie. It says, that's no longer a problem. This is the main focus. And it's a betrayal of the audience trust. And some people may enjoy that. This movie already was kind of on my nerves. Got on my nerves, and it just pushed it over to the limit where it became below average because of it. Besides that, there's a very, very deep, ham-fisted social message, and I know Romero's movies have social messages, and I think they're perfect. I think they're done well. And with a social message, you need some finesse. The whole movie shouldn't be a vehicle for that social message, I don't think, unless, you know, you have some finesse within it. I think social messages sometimes happen better subconsciously. When it feels like an overt thing to just be made just for that, it becomes kind of annoying. Or if it's just done really poorly. I don't care what the social message or what the political motivation of a film is, as long as it's done in a way that I think is intelligent, even if I don't agree with it. Or I find it despicable. As long as, you know what I mean? I can appreciate something in a movie if it's done to a certain extent. This is so ham-fisted, and it's definitely a classism thing where they're talking about the poor just being, you know, treated like crap, because the whole kind of virus and epidemic happens at the homeless level first. And everybody's blaming the homeless, and just how the military and the police don't care about the people of the, you know, the state or whatever, or the country. And then, you know, a lot of it is very typical in this kind of a movie that you would have that kind of message, but it's every single moment in the movie is that, and it's just almost eye-rolling, and everything is going to be telegraphed, you know, everything that's going to happen. There's a couple decent moments in here that they set up side characters, and the side characters seem to have these arcs that are a little bit better. Like one of the characters starts laughing when he's trapped, and he's like, it's all over. It's all over. And even when he dies, he kind of is chuckling and laughing, and I thought that was kind of effective. Like literally, there's only like 4 main characters in the movie: the father, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, and a homeless person, who are mostly the major characters of the film. And they seem to kill people off by likable to dislikable, I think, to a certain extent. Regardless, it's just the animation's not great, the story's not great, and the emotion is not there. So I would not recommend Seoul Station. I would recommend watching Train to Busan instead, which is an excellent movie and one of the best zombie films ever made, especially in recent years. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the sequel. Same director did this one, which kind of blows my mind that I don't know about the writer of Train to Busan, did the different writer in this one. I don't know the writer-director combination. Maybe there's a different writer for Train to Busan than this one, or maybe the director of it wrote both of them. I don't know, but this one I would consider a fail, especially in comparison to Train to Busan, which may not be fair, but that's the way I feel.
너네 밀린 숙박료 안 내?
오늘 밤까지만 봐주세요.
혜선아, 이번 달만 어떻게?
몰라!
인터넷에서 혜선이 닮은 애를 좀 봐서 말이야.
뭐?
아휴, 어디 가셨대? 어?
혜선이 어딨어? 어? 우리 혜선이 못 찾으면 너부터 죽을 줄 알아.
혜선이 저 죽이다 뉴스한테 공격한 거야.
아저씨, 전 노숙자 아니에요.
너 가만 있어. 한 발만 움직여봐 쏴버릴 거야.
빨리 데리러 와줘.
혜선아,
지금 없다는데. 이게 다 뭐하는 짓이야? 너희들은 경찰이야!
가만 있어. 가고 싶어요.
Okay, the next one is a Patreon pick from Jason Willard, and he picked Bang Bang, which I had not really heard of. This is kind of an Indian movie, a Hindi movie. I don't know, maybe it's Bollywood because there's some musical numbers in here. This is a very long movie. It's like 2 hours and like 10, 15, maybe it's 2.5 hours long. But this is a really strange movie. And basically what happens is we have everything. And when people told me Bollywood movies are kind of everything, it's an action movie, it's a romance movie, it's a comedy, it's a musical. They weren't lying. This has all of it. So what we have here is there's also some Indian British history, which I don't know anything about. It could be completely false, and I wouldn't know any better. But essentially what we have here is this big crime boss kills somebody early on in the movie. They break out of prison. Oh, and he's eating Pizza Hut, because it's very important in this movie. There's so much Pizza Hut product placement, you would swear that Pizza Hut produced the entire movie. And there's also Pizza Hut product placement in Seoul Station. It's weird. A Pizza Hut branching out across the world, I guess. So what happens, and it's like a rich gangster eating Pizza Hut. And my understanding is somebody told me that Pizza Hut is fancy in other countries, but not so much here. Yeah, so it's really funny to see for American or Western, American person. So essentially what happens is this big crime boss breaks out and he's like, I want to steal this famous jewel that is, priceless to the Indian people, and it's held in Britain. So he puts that out there, and basically what happens is a bunch of people, a major criminal steals it. He's going to make a deal with the gangsters, and he double crosses them for more money. So the gangsters are after him. He runs into this kind of side story. The second storyline that's going on is this beautiful girl who's never found true love. She works too much, runs into her waiting for a date that doesn't show up. They kind of mingle and fall in love and get intertwined during this big kind of criminal conspiracy of this big baddie trying to find the guy and the diamond and everything like that. There's police officers involved and all sorts of things like that happening. So it becomes this big epic chase movie, love story, and it's really kind of cute in a lot of ways. The lead, charming as hell. Dude seems to be able to dance, and they do this weird thing when they do these music videos. They'll have like a projection screen in the back, and it's maybe like green screen of other people dancing, and they like choreograph themselves in it. Looks pretty cheesy, but the guy can dance, the guy can fight. Looks like he's doing a bunch of his own stunts. The same thing with the lead actress here. It's like they picked like the two most gorgeous people they could find in the movie. Like the dude's completely shredded, and it's just like ridiculous. But there's a lot of fighting back and forth between them, and fighting and chase scenes between him and the baddies, and they have some baddies that you recognize that keep popping up here and there in the movie. There's a couple comical bad guys, like especially this big fat guy who's just kind of an oaf and always screws things up. Big action set pieces where he has like one of those jet stream boots in the ocean, where those things that hover, and he's jumping in and diving in the water and flying up, and all sorts of crazy stuff going on here. Tons of chases and just cool shit happening left and right. It's a very, very entertaining movie, and it ends in a very satisfying way. I enjoyed it. Good bad guys, good characters. A little long in the tooth for sure. I mean, 2.5 hours for this, but I feel like this is a big kind of event happening movie. So like everybody went, and it's just like everything. This is your movie for the month kind of deal. And that's Bang Bang, a cool, entertaining movie. Just a little too long for me, but I kind of broke it up in a couple sittings. But I enjoyed what I saw. Like I said, I like the leads in here. They're charming. They're entertaining. The bad guys really kind of your stereotypical rich kind of gangster kind of deal. And it's an international. Has a lot of people going places and everything. Beautiful locations, are part of the thing too. So that is Bang Bang. If you can see it, I would see it if you like that kind of thing. Especially a different kind of action movie for me. I hadn't seen anything quite like it in a long time. Reminds me a little bit of the plot of Hudson Hawk and the back and forth between Andy McDowell and Bruce Willis, but it did kind of feel like that to a certain extent too, like a comedy action.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bang bang.
Are you ready to blow? It's a yes or a no. Pull the trigger and go. Are you ready to blow? It's a yes or a no. Pull the trigger and go.
Okay, this next one is another Patreon pick by Keith Voigt Jr. This is called Mesmerize. This is a short by his friend Mark Williams. And I don't know Mark Williams. This is a short, I think like maybe a college-made short. And Keith's like, check this one out for your Patreon pick. And it's a 30-minute short. And okay, let's first say this. The acting, it ranges. Some of it's pretty decent. Some of it's kind of shaky. It does seem like a student film. So we're going to say that. And some of the dialogue is also a little bit patchy here and there. But okay, what we have here is these kind of it's in a world where this is really strange, where emotions are put on CDs, but it's also kind of like a drug where you're not supposed to take it more than, every 8 hours or 12 hours, or it can have damaging effects to you. But these CDs, these emotions are very valuable to people. It's kind of like reliving your emotions, and they're on CDs and everything like that. So this guy, the strip joints sell them, the singers are like the dancers are kind of like slinging the drugs on the side. And these two kind of low-life guys are stealing them and selling them themselves and using them themselves is what I'm gathering here. But they're kind of addicts, and it seems like a lot of people are addicts in this world. And one day he gets kind of involved with this stripper, and they start to have a relationship, and that kind of complicates things because the strip joint is directly involved with selling CDs and everything. And his memory, he's using it too much. He actually listens to a corrupted file, which is really crazy. But the idea of, being able to relive those emotions and everything like that, living in the past constantly, screwing up your future, is kind of, a nice metaphor. But at the same time, it's bittersweet feelings you can see like in their face when the characters are reliving these moments. But it kind of ends on a crazy note. Of course, it's not going to end well. It reminds me of the short by Adam Wingard, which was kind of like they had the CD that would give you like almost an LSD trip. I can't remember what it was called, but it was a short that Adam Wingard had done years ago, and I thought that was pretty effective. And I also kind of like this too, like the idea of having these different kind of drugs and different kind of emotions mixed is definitely something that I would go for. I thought it was fairly well done for the budget and the acting and the dialogue they had to work with, and interesting, very interesting concept. I think the concept is the best part about it, and the filmmaking's not horrible either. But I would recommend it if you could check it out. I'll ask Cage if I can put up the link to share with everybody. Maybe it's private, I'm not sure, but it's called Mesmerize. So look out for it in the description box. I might be able to get you a link.
Who's there?
Okay, the next Patreon pick is from Jeremy from 22 Shots, and he picked 1997's Office Killer. This one stars Carol Kane, Molly Ringwald, Michael Imperioli, and who is it? Alice G's Drummond, and she's in a bunch of stuff. You'd recognize her right away as an old lady, but she's like an old lady who's like in every movie. She's a librarian in Ghostbusters. Had to look her up, and I think there's a bunch of movies I recognize her from. But Office Killer, I had never seen this movie. Heard iffy things. 1997 is not really a year that I would dive into, to be honest. It's not a year I'm thrilled about, to be honest. After the Scream movies came out, lots of horror movies were just rather kind of dull for me unless they were independent, trying to do that wittiness of Scream with none of the good screenwriting of Scream. So, yeah, Office Killer. Oh boy, this kind of reminded me. I was like, is this like an Office Space gone wrong or something like that? A killer Office Space. So Carol Kane, who's in Scrooged, and what else is she in? Adam's Family as Granny. I think she was in Transylvania 65000. She's in this, and she stars as this kind of mousy, kind of almost nerdy, overlooked kind of person that works in this office. The office becomes kind of heated when they tell everybody they're cutting their hours. So everybody's very upset about cutting hours and all that kind of thing. So that kind of puts Carol Kane over the edge, and a bunch of other people kind of on their tippy toes and everything. Molly Ringwald plays kind of a bitchy girl that's really mean to Carolyn Kane. So yeah. And Carol Kane also takes care of her mother, who's in a wheelchair, who's played by Alice Stubbard, and she's always constantly like mean to her because she's always complaining. But this is a really weird movie. It kind of reminds me of something like May, but more comedic, or even Maniac, which is kind of silly and funny, where this person has obvious delusions and they're going to crack. But one day after work, she ends up killing somebody. And who else is in here? Geez, Eric Bogajian, who's in a bunch of stuff, talk radio. He is in flashbacks as her father. And at first you think that this is her snapping, getting back at people for treating her wrong, but you realize it stems earlier and there's something deeper wrong with Carol Kane. But Carol Kane is really good at being over the top and crazy and weird and different, as you could tell from Addams Family and those other movies, Scrooged. And this one, she is so funny and so weird. Well, she starts to kill the people and put them in her basement, and she's talking to them all the time, and she's like, "No, kitty," like, and she has her cats there. It's just a weird, bizarre, over-the-top performance, which absolutely had me laughing, and I wish it was a franchise. I think the name Office Killer really doesn't work necessarily to have multiple Office Killers, because the name almost sounds like a parody, and it kind of definitely is goofy and funny, like throwing a slasher in that area. But there's a couple gory moments too that kind of took me back, and I was like, wow, this is bloodier than expected, and just nastier than I ever would expect for something so silly as Office Killer. So I actually enjoyed it quite a bit, way more than I expected. Carol Kane stands out. Michael Imperioli is always solid. He's from The Sopranos and Dead Presidents and Goodfellas, bunch of movies. Just one of those guys. And there's a trippy header. I can't think of her name. She's in a bunch of stuff too. She's the main actress in Waterworld, so she's in this too. And she's kind of has that character where she's kind of selling out a little bit and kind of being and kind of looked at as someone that may be a sellout. But I was happy with it. There's some funny, dark moments, like a couple Girl Scouts come to her house, and then later you see the Girl Scouts in the basement, and I was just like, come on. And she's eating the cookies. Just really zany and weird, and when the 90s was like this, I enjoyed it. I'm not going to lie. I like the 90s being goofy. I do, and it's something I enjoy. And Office Killer is definitely a goofy 90s movie.
For the last 16 years, Doreen Douglas has worked at Constant Consumer Magazine without a promotion. She was quiet.
Doris, sit.
Conservative.
It's Doreen.
And inconspicuous.
Excuse me.
Until the day
Today's the big day.
they fired half the staff.
It's a massacre.
For this unassuming copy editor, keeping her job becomes an opportunity to do a little corporate downsizing of her own.
Doreen, you're done. Could you come hold the light?
For everyone that's ever punched a clock comes a dark comedy about what happens when the clock starts punching back. Carol Kane.
Look at this mess. I am going to have to clean it up.
Molly Ringwald.
I can hear someone breathing. Who is this?
Gene Triplehorn.
Let's go to lunch.
No!
Office Killer.
Oh, you're a lifesaver.
Not at all.
Okay, now we're going to start our run through 91. I don't have a video yet. I'm sorry, guys. I might make one. I don't know. The Dive in 1985 I enjoyed, but I don't know if I feel the same way about 91 yet to do it. So the first one, we're going to start off with one I had never seen. I didn't really know anything about. 1991, of course, Steel and Lace. Boy, oh boy. This is actually directed by a guy who does a lot of worked on visual effects and special effects on bigger movies like The Terminator and The Abyss. And I don't even know how to explain this. This movie has David Naughton in it, who I love. American Werewolf in London, brutal massacre comedy. It also has Bruce Davidson in it from a bunch of stuff. X-Men, just tons of movies. Lords of Salem. And also Brian Backer from The Burning and Fast Times at Ridgemont High, where he plays a dork in those movies. He plays kind of a dorky kind of guy, pushover in this one. This is a weird movie. I would put this somewhere in between Tammy and the T-Rex, which I like, and is zany and weird and goofy about robots and people being put into weird bodies, and The Class of 1999, which I absolutely adore. I would put Steel and Lace in the middle of that in its weirdness. This is a year after Class of 1999, so I can see it. And that's the same year, or around the same time as Terminator 2. So the Class of so Steel and Lace, the plot here. This opens up in a big courtroom scene where we realize that this woman was raped, and she filed against this rich kind of asshole, and they're having this big trial, and the rich asshole's buddies, who are all like business partners of his, there's like 4 more of them, so there's 5 together, they all basically stick up for him and tell him that it didn't happen. So the case is, you know, they're all free to go. Bruce Davidson is her brother, and he works in cybernetics, and what happens is she is so upset with the outcome of the case that she jumps off the top of the building and kills herself. Bruce Davidson is not going to live for that. So basically what happens is he reconstructs her. You figure this is going to happen, so I don't want to spoil it too much. But she comes back, of course, but she's like in different disguises, and she can change herself, and she starts to go pick off the guys who spoke against her in the trial. So she'll take all these high, you know, business bros out, like these asshole, I guess what do you say, like trust fund baby kids or some millionaires, asshole sons. So she starts to pick them off by like seducing them as someone else, and her body is basically a giant weapon. Think like Class of 99, where like they'd have the barbecue arm or like the drill arm. So yeah, or the rocket launcher arm, stuff like that. So basically her body is a weapon. She starts to kill them in overly gratuitous ways. Like it's super gory and over the top when she actually kills him, and it becomes quite comical and stuff like that. So she's picking them off, and she doesn't quite understand, kind of like RoboCop, who she is or what's going on. There's a reporter that had covered the case, and she's kind of snooping around here, and David Naughton, the police officer, starts to snoop around, and she starts to recognize the reporter. So there's some sort of back and forth between them when she shows up at the crime scenes. And of course she wants to pick off, the robot woman still has like the orders from her brother, directed orders to pick off everybody. So it's entertaining, it's really weird, and the idea that it's a rape revenge robot movie, it's like The Deadly Friend. Remember Deadly Friend by Wes Craven? Kind of like that too. So it's like this weird mixture, like I don't even know how to put it. Tammy and the T-Rex rape revenge movie. I saw all those movies are revenge movies, right? Tammy and the T-Rex, Class of 1999, Deadly Friend. So it fits into that ballpark, but it's so freaking weird and bizarre, and like it feels at times it's a little talky and boring, and then they'll have this over-the-top murder scene or kill scene where I was just like, what the hell's going on? I actually kind of enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. I'm not gonna lie. I liked it. I like it. It's weird. It's kind of just bizarre. You kind of have to see it for yourself. It used to be streaming on Amazon in HD. Unfortunately, I don't think it is anymore, but there is an HD stream of it somewhere. But if you can track it down, check out Steel and Lace. I enjoyed it quite a bit, to be honest.
Once, she was quite beautiful. But that was another lifetime. Now, she has a new face. A new form. And revenge on her mind.
Aren't you willing to die for your friend?
Craig is dead.
Not just dead, murdered. His luck ran out, that's all.
But I know this guy.
Even he couldn't keep her alive, but he recreated her. The perfect combination of android and fatal attraction.
I think I know who did it, and I'm certain that there's more to come.
For once in your life, walk away from something before you get hurt. If you try to go to the feds or the DA, I will kill you.
If you think you can escape.
See how terribly wrong you all were?
You simply don't know her. Even hell has no fury bloody enough for this woman. David Naughton of An American Werewolf in London. Bruce Davison of Longtime Companion.
Very pretty.
And Claire Wren of No Man's Land. steel and lace.
All right, the next one here is one I had seen a couple times before, and this is Mom from 1991. This cover always stood out to me. I've always adored that cover, to be honest. It's just so perfect of this little old lady sitting in the chair and like the background. So this is a weird movie. I can't even... Okay, all right. So the cast in here, who stands out to me? There's a couple. Brian James, of course, is in here, who I absolutely love. And Art Evans. Art Evans is the cop in Fright Night. He also plays a cop in this one. So, yeah... The idea here, Brian James is always great. He's in tons of movies. So the plot of this is nonsense. Oh, Stella Stevens is in here too, and I have to mention Stella Stevens because Stella Stevens, you know, obviously in Peck and Paw's Ballad of Cable Hogue and a bunch of other classic movies. But what's really funny about Stella Stevens being in Mom as a prostitute, really comical prostitute lady, is that a couple years later she would be in Granny. The Granny, which is about an evil old woman being turned into evil against her family, which is very similar to Mom, where she plays the titular character of the Granny. So I think it's funny that Stella Stevens somehow managed within 5 years to be in a movie called Mom and the Granny. Funny. So the plot of Mom is she has her son who's a reporter. Weird, 90s and reporter. We just had the reporter character in Private Eyes, too. A lot of Private Eyes in the 90s. So we had the reporter in Steel and Lace as the main character. So the son of the mom is a reporter, and you know, he's kind of seeing a girl and everything like that. And I think Mom's a little lonely, a little bored. And so she's talking to her son. Nobody lives there anymore. She wants to take out and rent the room out because she's completely bored. So she ends up renting her room out, putting an ad out, and what happens is there's a serial killer going around killing people, and that's kind of like farther away, but it's kind of traveling in their area. Brian James shows up to take that room off her hands. He's wearing sunglasses. He's got his hair slicked back. He's real red hair, real weird in this one. And Brian James gives a super bizarre performance, and it turns out that Brian James is some sort of, they don't call it a werewolf, but he explains it as, you know, werewolf, gargoyle, vampire, all the same. So it's kind of that deal, where it's just kind of a singular monster to explain the weird oddities of the world in that monster. So one night when they're there and he's starting to stay there, she cooks him a big elaborate dinner, and he always goes out, like he says, because he's a meat eater, he's a killer. And Mom cooks this big old dinner, and Brian James is like, leave me alone, leave me alone. She keeps pushing closer to him. You gotta eat something. Brian James kind of can't control himself. His glasses get knocked out. He has these evil eyes. Bites Mom. Now Mom has turned into that monster. So basically a big part of this movie is Brian James and Mom driving around picking up homeless people and eating them until the son catches on and there's this big turmoil. But it's really hilarious, and this is basically the whole premise of the movie. The gimmick is that we have this little old lady who is a kind of werewolf creature that goes out at night and eats people. It's hilarious. No one would suspect Mom. Look at, she's wearing sunglasses. I think it's freaking hilarious. At times, the son has this big inner turmoil, whether he helps his mom or he goes to the law. And there's some kind of, the monster's pretty cool. I like when she changed. She's got this big kind of over-the-top face. I think she's actually on the back there. That's very 90s, right? That kind of like, all those razor-sharp teeth and everything. So it's a really kind of goofy movie, of course, which is a very weird over-the-top thing I noticed with 91. We have a lot of goofy, big makeup effects already, and I've only watched 10. And a lot of these movies I had seen, so I'm rewatching. So lots of big over-the-top special effects, which I absolutely adore. I was born in 86, so these movies I saw a lot in the video store. So almost all these covers are movies I recognize. Like, okay, I know what we're doing. But the special effects are so large. The plots are so colorful. I mean, the movies are so colorful. The plots are so zany and over-the-top. I just kind of love it. And this goofy premise of just, you know, hey, what if a granny got bit by a werewolf? That's pretty much it. I know there's another movie called My Mom's a Werewolf too, but not this year. But just like, I kind of like this late 80s, early 90s goofy stuff, and Mom is no exception. There's an interview with the woman who played the actress on here. She's also a dog wrangler, and she seems fairly cool. She seems cool to me. She's just like kind of like, yeah, well, I had to play this character I was nothing alike, and how she got the job. Interesting, and overall enjoyable movie. Fun stuff, Mom.
And now, a sneak preview of upcoming video cassette releases.
Clay Dwyer has a problem. His mother, Emily, had always been the perfect mother.
Hot roast on a Dwyer.
With a loving family.
Oh, you're gonna have a baby!
But lately,
She just hasn't been herself.
What's your favorite?
Her appetite isn't what it used to be.
I'm gonna be sick.
She disappears, and Clay finds her in the strangest places with the oddest assortment of people.
What do you want? My mother.
What do you do when the sweetest lady in the world turns mean?
Let me out of here! Be quiet! You're waking up the neighbors! My mother's upstairs.
That was your mother?
When do you say enough is enough?
Please stop it. You're acting crazy.
I'm acting crazy. You just freaking killed somebody.
Don't ever talk to me like that. I'm still your mother.
You can hide her away from the world, but you'll have a hard time keeping this mother down. What are we gonna do about it?
Mom?
Mom. Sleep tight, my little boy.
Okay, the next one here is by Tony Randall, and this is one I had heard about for years. This is a first-time watch. This is the DVD from Columbia TriStar, and this is Children of the Night. Yeah, a vampire movie. And I know Dustin had seen this one. He brought it up to me before and talked about it. Some weird kind of elements to it. But yeah, this is a small town kind of vampire film. It feels like almost like a goofy small town Stephen King town, but just even more zanier. And what happens is the opening of this movie, we have these two girls kind of like, they introduce this small town. You see like Garrett Morris, it's this homeless guy walking across the street, almost getting ran over by this evangelical weirdo driving a bus, kind of preaching. And you see that, and then you see like the big fat lawyer, the weird doctor, and the mayor all arguing in the street, and they're over the top and weird, and you just get this huge kind of like perfect small town 90s feel. That feels like it's a throwback to older towns, but it feels like the 90s, you know what I mean? So again, I love that kind of deal. These two girls ended up talking, and there's this underground crypt that was flooded years ago. And you learn why it was flooded and kind of a cool story. But they decide that they're going to go in there and swim and screw around. I don't know who in their right mind would go swimming in a flooded mausoleum or crypt. That is the last thing on earth I would want to do. Being trapped with a bunch of corpses in the water. Ugh, no. But they do it. It seems kind of normal to them. They go down there, they start to swim, and they're talking about boys and everything. And one of them bumps to something deep underneath the water. And the way the vampires slumber in this movie is insane. Like, a lot of them, I think that some of the characters put their lungs... Well, there's two types of vampires, to be honest. But some of the vampires, it seems like the ones that are fed upon, that are actually being fed upon, sleep with their lungs outside their body in the water. And it's just insanity. So they bump in a vampire. It wakes him up. He comes out in a rage, bites one of them. And it cuts. And we have a next town over, like 30 minutes away, 50 miles maybe. Next town, kind of small town over. And this priest calls over his friend. And he kind of explains to him that the woman that he loved, Karen Black, who's also from this small town, has been turned into a vampire. And so has her daughter. And he has them tied up into this room, kind of isolated. And he needs to go to this small town and figure out what's happened and stop this vampire infection. He, of course, doesn't really buy it. He's kind of confused by it. And they also show that Karen Black is in this weird cocoon. So he eventually goes over down to the small town and tries to figure out what's going on, teams up with a young girl and Garrett Morris, and they must stop this kind of vampire invasion. It is super quirky and super weird and super fun, and I loved every second of it. I like the small town feel. It kind of reminds me of like Chud, where like Chud 2, where we have all these kind of... I know people hate Chud 2, so if you don't like Chud 2, don't say this is like similar, but there is some similarities in that we have this small town, you introduce them, and then later you see them as monsters in kind of their goofy way, and they're still themselves, but there's no monsters at the same time, like the doctor and everything. So basically they have to fight vampires and survive, and there's this weird 90s perverted kid who's like a peeping Tom, which is also a weird staple of the 90s too. Like there's two characters I remember growing up that were always in every movie. The pervert, whether they're a kid or like an old man with a telescope who's like, looking at girls like in their windows right before they go to bed. Like that was such a trope in the 90s. And I think like over time they're like, we got to get rid of this, man. This is really weird. And then there's also the lovable drunk who's like, I just had 30 beers. I'm going to drive myself home. And everybody's like, Uncle Reg, you're hilarious. So like that kind of stereotypical characters like died out. And they're still prevalent in 91 for sure. So we have this kid who he teams up with for a second. There's a couple twists, but it's really funny and goofy. And the main vampire is awesome. And there's a meltdown, of course. You got to have a meltdown in a vampire movie. But the lead and the priest aren't necessarily great in here. They're not horrible, but they're not great. But some of the side characters are a little bit more fun, like Garrett Morris, of course, who's also in, I think, this year's Severed Ties, which is a weird movie with Oliver Reed. And, of course, Karen Black is fun in it, and some of the side characters I enjoyed as well. I actually really like this one. I would give it a recommend. I think it was really cool. And Tony Randall, of course, directed Amityville 2. It's About Time, Ticks, and, of course, Hellraiser 2, which are all kind of underrated movies, to be honest. I feel like Tony Randall got the short end of the stick on recognition, if I'm thinking about it. You know, almost like Anthony Hitchcock or Hitchcock, sorry, I always say his name wrong, or somebody like that, or even a Jeff Burr. Like, those guys never get the recognition they deserve. And maybe they had a couple movies you hated, but they had a couple you really liked, too. So, yeah, that is Children of Night, recommended.
And now, a sneak preview of upcoming video cassette releases.
They are the sons of evil. They are the daughters of darkness. They were born when hell began to burn. In the classic tradition of Nosferatu and Dracula comes a terrifying story of the undead and the innocent souls they must seduce to survive.
The only way to help them is to find the source of the vampirism.
We are their prey. He is their lord. They are his children. Children of the night.
Okay, this next one is super weird. And I saw this on TV as a kid, and I always wanted to rewatch it. Bought the Blu-ray when it came out, let it sit on the shelf for 5 years. So this is Highway to Hell. Yeah, super weird 90s movie. This is so 90s it hurts. We have Chad Lowe, and is it Christy Swanson? I got to double check because I forgot her freaking name last time. It is Christy Swanson. She was in the Mr. Boogedy movie, and I couldn't remember her name there. So it's Chad Lowe and Christy Swanson. Christy Swanson would later play Buffy the Vampire Slayer, if I'm mistaken, in the movie from 94, is it? And Chad Lowe is obviously the brother of Rob Lowe. We have this young couple who's in love. They want to run away and get married. He's a pizza delivery boy. The parents would obviously not, approve, so they're going to do it and go take the back roads. Who's the old man who tells them not to do it? He's in a bunch of stuff. Richard Farnsworth, who plays Slim in the remake of The Getaway, obviously named after Slim Pickens. He tells them don't go that way. There's bad stuff that way. They go anyways, and they cross into a dimension into hell. And what happens is C.J. Graham is playing Hell Cop, who, he played Jason in Part 6. He ends up kidnapping the girl. And that's because she's a virgin, and hell wants virgins, of course. And, space people want virgins, too. I think that's his trope. But so, essentially, he has to go into this hell dimension to find his girlfriend and pull her out. And when he goes in here, everything is weird and mixed up and crazy. There's a bunch of weirdos. Gilbert Gottfried is Hitler. Ben Stiller is, like, his first role. He's a weird short order cook, cooking on the sidewalk. Jerry Stiller's in here. There's a couple kind of familiar faces that pop up just for the hell of it, really weird. Adam Stork from The Stand. He plays Larry Underwood. So it's just a bunch of weirdos popping up in here and over-the-top characters. Hell Cop is awesome. His props are cool. He has handcuffs that are actually hands. The special effects are really fun. There's monsters and mutants and just weird shit going on. Weird devil woman that I always loved. It's just so 90s it hurts. There's a really funny moment where it says the road to hell is paved in good intentions, and they're actually like melting people down and paving the road with them, and people getting line of like, I slept with my husband's boss because I thought it would help him. And they're just like, they're getting paved down. One guy gets up there and he's like, little Christy, I let her drink the bleach because I thought it would help her understand a lesson or the cleaning product. And I'm just like, so funny. So all that kind of weird zany shit going on. But of course, you know, the lead has to face off against the devil to get his girlfriend back. Hellcop is a really cool character. I really enjoyed him. I just like this one a lot. I think it's cool. I think it's weird enough. I think that the best part in the whole damn movie is when they go into this diner and all the cops are sitting there and they're all like cinnabited out. They have like their eyes stitched shut. And I remember Steve Johnson, the special feature, said basically, he's like, I kind of ripped off a Clive Barker story for that. And you kind of can tell. But regardless, I really like this one. Hadn't seen it in years. And what's the sign that says all those who pass lose or something like that? All thee who move forward. I can't think it's the line from the Bible. But it's used in this one, and I want to mention it because it's used in the next one, and it's actually funny how they used it in the next one. Geez, I can't think of it. All thee who go past this point lose fate or something like that. I can't think of it, but it's definitely a classic line that I can't remember. But this one is a lot of fun. Would really recommend checking it out. It's kind of unique. Like I said, like I know a lot of these movies that I'm talking about were probably kind of poo-pooed, like that's just too stupid and goofy. And nowadays, I think they would be kind of applauded for their imaginative, innovative kind of techniques. But the handcuffs are badass. There's just all sorts of cool stuff going on here. You know, it's such a 90s name to name it after an AC/DC song, Highway to Hell. But yeah, check it out. It's good stuff.
Hey, yo. Join us on a dazzling cinematic adventure down the highway to hell. A winding route that stretches from here to eternity.
Kansas anymore.
Discover the warm, energetic, inventive, and friendly inhabitants of hell.
Can you tell me the quickest way to hell?
Sex, drugs, rock and roll.
Share with them their traditional crafts and delicious local cuisine.
Vegetarian bitch!
Paging Saddam Hussein.
Bastard!
Down here, that's a compliment.
You'll marvel at the unusual flora and fauna. Delight in the people's daily pursuits.
I'm a lover, not a fighter. Oh.
And see reenactments of rituals that go back hundreds of thousands of years.
Once you have crossed, there is no way back. I'm gonna scoop your brain!
Learn how a people steeped in tradition have made their city a thriving modern metropolis.
It's the cop from hell!
And meet the individuals who have made hell the international hotspot it is today.
I am the Prince of Princes.
We've heard that story before, haven't we?
Highway to Hell. An unforgettable journey from Sovereign Pictures.
Now we'll have some fun.
Okay, the next one is also really kind of a weird one that I had never seen, and this is an EGFA film. This is Scary Movie. Always wanted to watch it. Never really had a proper release. This stars Jonathan Hawks in his first role. You know, it's gotta be. Jonathan Hawks was in Deadwood and a bunch of other stuff. Really good actor. He looks really young here, and I really gotta say he's super tremendous in this one. Super kind of quirky and weird and just great. This one looks like it's very regional. A very regional movie. It's made in Texas, and it just looks like a real regional Halloween movie, and that's kind of great. I think the look and the earnestness of this movie really put it forth a long way. It is kind of funny and goofy, but it's never to the top where it's laughing at itself. It's made with heart, and it's made as best as it can be. It's made on a budget. So basically, essentially, what we have here is somebody in Jonathan Hawks named Warren, who has to have a nervous kind of problem. He has to have kind of kind of nervous disorder or anything like that. So one night he is invited to go out with his friends and go to a haunted house, and he's terrified of it. And at the same time, there's a psycho killer who escaped from the mental institution. Obviously a trope from Halloween, of course. So basically, Jonathan Hawkes is waiting in line, and he overhears when he goes to use the urinal that a crazy person has escaped from the mental ward. This kind of puts him into like a frenzy, and he's terrified the entire movie. So everything around him, from the silly stuff of the people running out of the haunted house screaming, to the props, to people trying to scare him, terrify him, and it's all kind of made in like this elaborate horror movie style, where it's just like eerie but goofy. In his face, he's always like really nervous. He just looks great. And the best parts of this movie, of course, are as they start to mix. They talk about this in the commentary. They start to mix reality with what's happening around him. You can't tell what's real and what's fake, and how he's interpreting things. And you're just waiting for the killer to kind of come out and start picking people off. But there's like a lot of zany kind of characters in here. They actually put Eddie Monster, the kid who played Eddie Monster, in here, which I didn't even notice until I heard the commentary. And one of the funniest bits in the whole movie to me is every time Warren gets scared, there's this guy in line with him who's always behind him, and he becomes this character where he's laughing at him. He's like, just starts laughing in his face every time it happens. And I just started to laugh hysterically every time he was laughing at Warren, which I loved. But it has, of course, a twist kind of thing happening in here. There's cool props, and you know what? It has a thick atmosphere. Like, it really does feel like a really cool haunted house you would go to. It kind of captures that Halloween spirit, and I got to give it props for that. I really like it. I think it's really fun and different. And though it doesn't have that much really going on, it's not an overly gratuitous horror movie. It does have its moments. It does have a couple moments here and there of blood and everything. And it does have some shout outs to some classic horror at the same time. I do think it's like a regional kind of little hidden gem that I think a lot of people will enjoy. On the release, there's also a short called Mr. Pumpkin, which I did watch, which they pointed out Robert Burns is in it, who I talked about a little bit last week and everything like that. Or on the 85 shows, involved with Future Kill and Confession of a Serial Killer. So, yeah, I kind of like Mr. Pumpkin as well. I feel like I didn't watch this other short on there, but the commentary kind of opened things up for me, and I did enjoy it before. I want to go higher than what I rated it on Letterboxd, but I do think that it doesn't, for what it is, it's perfect, but for what it will also what it is not necessarily that big of a movie. So it's a scary movie. Really recommend it. I suggest you check it out. They cleaned it up pretty well for a kind of a cheaper movie, but I like it, and I think it's enjoyable. Definitely something to put on at Halloween and just have it playing.
It's a quiet Halloween night. For just a few dollars, this place offers more than a few thrills.
This year, we're going to give more than their money's worth.
Are you going to get a ticket, or are you going to get a ticket?
Psycho killer escapes on Halloween night. Yeah, right.
I must have taken a wrong turn, or...
Dang right you took a wrong turn, or...
Oh boy. This one right here. I think I might have a contender for the worst movie in 91 already. This is by Barry J. Gillis, or is it Barry J. Gillis? Yeah, Barry J. Gillis, and this is Wicked World. I don't think this movie ever was properly released before. This is EGFA as well. I watched the 1991 version because I wanted to watch the original version of Wicked World. This is the same director of Things. He has kind of an infamous following because his movies are so batshit and weird. This one is a fairly long movie, if I remember correctly. It felt really long. It's an hour and 40 minutes, I think, but the credits are like 10 minutes too, so maybe it's about an hour and a half. I do not know how to explain this movie at all. And first and foremost, I want to say this. I listened to the features, and Barry Gillis, it seems like he's having fun making these movies. It doesn't seem like he's making these movies for the wrong reasons or anything like that, as far as making money or anything. He definitely feels like he loves to make movies, and he loves making movies. Now, saying that, I thought this movie was abysmal. It's so poor. It's so poor, and I know that half of the charm will be. I was watching. It's very rare. This only happened one other time with me, where I was watching this, and I really felt like it was a new movie trying to be an old bad movie on purpose, like Dangerous Men. Like Dangerous Men, I had to double check what year it was. I was like, this isn't old. This is like a new movie trying to make fun of old movies. This one I feel is in the same vein. There's so much ADR. There's so much ADR that tries to be exposition to the plot because it makes no sense. Basically what we have here is, let me just explain the opening for like 5 minutes, and this should explain everything you need to know about Wicked World. Oh, jeez. Okay. Oh, jeez. Okay, there's a bunch of people hanging out, and there's two on the couch making out ferociously. She takes off her shirt. This is like right in the living room. She's nude. The guy's like feeling up on her butt crack and everything like that. And it's like the camera's focused on her, like her ass and everything. And you almost like, it's like pulling down her panties almost enough so you can see everything. But it's like, we can't go that far because we want to get a distributor. So it's like covering there. And there's this nerdy guy on the couch like this, just watching, angry the whole time. There's another couple in the room. And then he's like, the girl gets up and she's like, I'm going to take a shower. I don't want to have sex. We're going to save it for marriage. And then the nerdy guy's like, did you fuck my sister? And it was his sister he's watching the whole time. So then we're like, oh my God, what in the world? Who just makes out like that ferociously in front of everybody, especially the girl's sibling? So then we look, and in the background, we see a guy in a gas mask watching, just in the background. And I'm like, what in the world? The nerd has a gun. There's an extended shower scene that's like 5 minutes of her just naked showering. So then the nerd starts to kill everybody in the room. And then the guy in the gas mask comes in and kills everybody else. And then we kind of follow this story that jumps back between, I think, this horrible cop who's just like, I don't know if they call him like a martyr in the movie, but really he's just like a horrible piece of shit cop who beats people and films it and is going to sell it. I don't know how that makes him a martyr, even if he's killed at the end by bums. He's a horrible piece of shit. And it feels like the movie's trying to preach him as some sort of misunderstood hero. I don't know what the hell's going on with that. But the main character is a baddie, and he's narrating the whole movie, and he's like a vegetable, and all these are kind of like his memories or what he wants to do to people. So he has this British accent, and he's like, I really want to kill everyone. I hate grass. I hate slides. I hate humanity. And it's awful. And I think in a group you would be hysterically laughing, but it hits that point where like I'm hearing this character talk, and I'm like, now, are these the ramblings of a madman who the director is like hating? Or are these the ramblings of the director through a madman in a movie? Because these are just ramblings. And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. But there's just the most hilarious lines I've heard in years. Like where one character comes in and it's the neighbor, it's the cop. And he's also writing the story as he goes on, and he's working it out so the audience will understand what's going on. But you don't understand what's going on. So he's making this whole thing up, and this character comes over, and the wife's like, and he's like kind of he's upset because he's sitting there, he's with his family, the killer. This is before his brain damage apparently, or it's in his mind, and he's telling the story of how the story unfolds. That's more like it. But it's coming from a brain damaged mind. I don't know, whatever. So okay, this cop shows up, and the wife's like, do you want a hot dog? And the kids are playing or whatever. And she's like, never mind my husband. He's upset because his 3 daughters killed themselves. And he's more upset about people overseas getting help while the government lets the regular people starve. And I'm like, what the fuck is this ham-fisted shit coming on? Is this a joke? Is this serious? I can't tell. Some of the editing is so weird. Like they'll have music playing and they'll cut to something else. And I understand you do that. Sometimes you'll have the music playing and then when you cut to a different scene, it cuts out. But they do it like 20 fucking times back and forth. Boom, boom. So you hear the music, you don't hear the music, you hear the music, you hear the music. And it cuts to animals. Like you'll see like a boat in the background, you hear loud boat noises. And then for no reason, and it appears it happens in all Barry J. Gillis's movies where you hear like a hawk or like an eagle scream over the soundtrack. It's like, and you're like, what is going on? Why is this here? Why is this mixed like this? I can't tell if this movie's a joke or it's earnest or what is going on. I don't know. I really don't know. And the special features didn't help me know. But I don't know. I really don't know what the hell's going on. I watched the 1991 version. Couldn't bring myself to watch the newer version. I wonder if it's edited better. I know he talked about having some sound issues. And maybe that's why they had to ADR everything. Maybe that's why they had to kind of rewrite it in ADR. But I don't know. This is bad. And I feel like shit for saying it's bad, but it's bad. I can't say anything else about it. But I do think that people will watch this and laugh hysterically. I think that people will be like, this is the best thing. This is like The Room or something. But I don't like it. I just had a hard time watching it, but I can't stop talking about it. I didn't forget it. So there's that. And maybe if I watched it with a group, I would cry with laughter. And I would just enjoy watching other people watch it. But Wicked World. No, it really is a wicked world if I have to watch this again. So, yeah, that was terrible. I'm fired.
So, Brad, are you fucking my sister or what?
What's it to you, a mental case?
All you guys have called me a mental case once too often. Say your prayers.
Places in Toronto.
The killer who brutally murdered your ex-girlfriend is getting out today?
I've been thinking about it all morning. I'm gonna kill that bastard. Welcome to the red zone.
Okay, this next one here is one that I watched years ago, and I was lukewarm on it, and boy, was I ever wrong. Geez, I was an idiot. This is 1991's The Resurrected, directed by legendary director Dan O'Bannon, who did Return of the Living Dead, who worked on Alien, Dead and Buried, Life Force. It stars Chris Sarandon and John Terry. This one is a Lovecraft story based off the the strange case of Charles, or is it just a case of Charles Dexter Ward? This has a private eye as the main character, which you kind of will realize this also goes very well with a 91 kind of deal. And it stars John Terry, who is in Hawk the Dragon Slayer or something like that. I never saw the movie, and I never did because I didn't like his performance in this one. And I got to say I was wrong. I don't know why I disliked his performance, but I really, rewatching it, I thought it was tremendous. And this story, actually rewatching this movie, I had a newfound appreciation for it. It's way better than I ever remembered. It's not easy to adapt Lovecraft. It's not. It's very difficult, and Stuart Gordon did his own thing, and he did some really entertaining movies, and I think Dan O'Bannon did a really smart, entertaining movie here, and unfortunately this didn't get a theatrical release. It went direct to video, which is insane to me how good this is. So yeah, we have kind of a kind of structured story here. It's kind of a opening, narration, not necessarily narration, but somebody telling a story, kind of flashback. And John Terry is a private eye, and he basically tells a story about a woman coming in and telling a story about her husband. That there's something wrong with him. He's changed a lot. It's Chris Sarandon, and he started kind of snooping around in this area after he went to like an old kind of family house and found this old painting, everything, and he's been kind of not himself lately. So she wants him to dig into what he's doing in this isolated barn. He starts to do that, and he realizes that he's up to something weird. He's getting all these coffins delivered to him, these long boxes, and these weird and meat and blood and all this kind of weird shit delivered to him. And they start to dig deeper, and he brings in help of his other, worker, his other private eye, and the wife. They start to dig deeper, and they realize that Charles Dexter Ward has been performing weird kind of Lovecraftian experiments. So they go in the catacombs and all sorts of things. They find this hidden lair. The movie's awesome. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's really well acted. It's really intelligent. Chris Sarandon basically gets to play kind of dual roles here, and obviously from Fright Night, he's a tremendous actor in Child's Play and Lipstick and The Sentinel, just in a slew of movies, and he's always a really great actor. This one, like I said, he has this range where he can play these different characters, and he's terrifying. The special effects are really well thought out. The set designs are great. Some of the stuff in here is some of the most Lovecraftian stuff you can think about. So the movie is a flashback, like he's telling the story, but then they find a journal and start reading that, so you have a flashback within a flashback. And normally I would kind of poo-poo that kind of screenwriting, but for some reason it really works here. Like I would laugh at like Night of the Demon for doing that, but in this one, I'm talking about the Bigfoot movie, guys, so not the other one. But so what happens here is, and it tells this elaborate, great story about, ancestral kind of horror too, which is another thing that Lovecraft always did, like kind of having that hereditary passing down of, of obsession and also other kind of things. But I love that aspect too. That's very Lovecraftian. So there's this flashback where they tell the story about this kind of mangled experiment washing ashore, and it's perfect. And the way they shoot it, it zooms out on it. It's just perfect. It's absolutely done well. It's creepy as shit, and it feels like straight up Lovecraft. The ending and and at first I always thought this was kind of like a little bit not inept but hard to follow. And this time around, I just picked it up right away, how the experiment works and everything like that. I mean, it is alchemy and stuff like that and sorcery, which, you know, whatever. But if you can buy Frankenstein in a movie, you can buy this. So just buying that kind of aspect, I was like, this is really insane and really awesome. And the monsters and creatures are horrifying. The way it unfolds is creepy, and sometimes they build up and they do all sorts of, you know, it's all set up perfect. And I like the lead being that private eye because he has that, he's kind of a badass, but he also has a sarcastic tinge to him, but he's not completely goofy. I don't know, he works really well. I like the relationship he has with the girlfriend. There's these weird, crazy nightmare sequences. It's kind of a perfect Lovecraft adaptation, you know, and I've been seeing different, you know, I feel like this one's kind of looked over. I know it had some love when the Blu-ray just came out from Shaw a couple years back, but I do think people need to reevaluate it again because I think it's one of the best Lovecraft stories. The special features are great. There's an interview with the lead actress. I can't think of her name. I can't think of her name in the movie either, which is bothering me. But Chris Sarandon also has a nice interview. I like him. He talks about, you know, working well with everybody on here. And then there's also a commentary with some of the people that worked on the movie, which I thought was really funny. And they mentioned some of the shots were taken in Toledo, Ohio, which is where I'm from. The exterior, I think, or the basically what's the shot of geez, I can't think of the shot. The first shot, opening shot, not of a city, establishing shot. There we go. It was one at Toledo, not actually New England. So, yeah, there's just a bunch of features on here. One with, you know, I think it was the screenwriter or one of the special effects guys and stuff like that. Yeah, the screenwriter was on here too, maybe the production designer. So they kind of talk about Dan O'Bannon too and everything like that. And they paint a picture that Dan was kind of a strange guy, but I always felt like he appreciated, from the stuff I heard, he appreciated the fans he had. He should have had more. And I think he's kind of underrated. I think he's highly intelligent, but maybe just not the easiest person to work with, and especially producers. You know, he didn't get along with Moneymen, but a lot of the greats don't. Sam Peckinpah didn't, of course. But I'm not comparing Dan O'Bannon and Sam Peckinpah. Obviously, apples and oranges here. But I just love what Dan O'Bannon did with the movie, and I know he was sick on it, and I think it turned out pretty well. Richard Band does a great score, a really good score. And he's on this disc as well talking about it, and he seems to enjoy the score and like the movie too. I think most people that have actually watched the movie enjoy it. I don't know what the hell was wrong with me the first time I watched it. I think I was just being a baby, and it happens sometimes. You're in a bad mood, you watch something, you just don't, it doesn't connect. This rewatch, I was like, no, this is really freaking awesome. I can't believe that I felt so sour about it before. Great performances, works really well. Great way to have the story framed and then have it as a detective story, and just love it. Love the hell out of it. Great movie from '91.
Then, from the author of Terror, H.P. Lovecraft. From the director of Return of the Living Dead.
There's no evil in what I do, so long as I do it rightly.
The Resurrected.
I have struck depths that your little brain cannot fathom.
He lived centuries ago.
It is to be expected. The dead take much blood.
But for him, death was only the beginning.
The cops found 8 boxes of human remains. Turns out they've had a rash of tomb snatchings over in Europe.
Now this wizard from the past.
Don't you understand what's going on down here, Lonnie? He beat death.
Has teamed with a man from the present.
He's talking about bringing people back from the dead.
To create an evil that will last forever.
As the hunger grows, my control will surely weaken.
The best we can hope for is to somehow diminish Charles's homicidal and cannibalistic impulses. The curse of the formerly dead is the hunger, and it will not be denied.
Chris Sarandon of Fright Night and Child's Play.
I have drawn down demons from the stars.
There'll be no salvation for thee.
John Terry of In Country and Full Metal Jacket. Jane Sibbett of television's The Famous Teddy Z.
The destinies of all things, living and dead.
The Resurrected.
Okay, I'm going to do this one back to back, even though this is the last 91 movie I watched, but I think it fits perfect. This is Cast a Deadly Spell, directed by Martin Campbell, who did Mask of Zorro and The Green Lantern, which everybody hates. I never watched The Green Lantern. But this is, like I said, this is also a Lovecraft story. This is an HBO movie with one of the best casts of 91, I imagine. We got Fred Ward. I love Fred Ward from Tremors. We got Julianne Moore, gorgeous as always. We got Clancy Brown, the Kurgan himself. Love him. We got David Warner, who did a couple Lovecraft movies, this and Necronomicon, and he's tremendous in this. If you need a baddie or need a kind of sophisticated kind of guy, look no further than David Warner. We also have Charles Holohan, tremendous character actor stuff. He's in like The Thing. We have Lee Turgensen, also great in here, and there's a couple other familiar faces in the movie as well. You'll recognize the guy who plays Tugwell is also tremendous as a goon. Reminds me a lot of my friend Matt Hudson, who's also an actor. But just a tremendous cast in here, very well acted and whatnot. This takes place in 1948, right after World War II, and it's basically a gumshoe private eye, which is another 91 trope, in Fred Ward, and he is what's his name? He's actually Lovecraft. He actually plays Lovecraft. His former chief, he used to work for the police department, is Bradbury. So there we go. And it's 48 where everybody uses magic. So it's an alternative kind of dimension world where everybody uses magic except, of course, him. He's the last guy. He doesn't know anybody anything to himself. And that kind of tough private eye, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody better than Fred Ward to play that. So essentially, he's hired by Hackshaw, who is David Warner, who is this rich, kind of sophisticated guy. He hires him to find this book that was stolen from him. It's the Necronomicon, which I can't say. Necronomicon. There we go. Jeez, man. But he hires him to get that book back because somebody stole it. Somebody who worked for him. So yeah, and also there was involvement where he was kind of being flirtatious, possibly with the daughter. We have this young daughter here. So he's plunged into this world, like I said, where everybody uses magic, and there's all sorts of magic things going on to try to find this book. He runs into criminals. His ex-partner is now this big criminal who dates his ex-girl, and Julianne Moore's his ex-girl, and his ex-partner is Clancy Brown Borden, who also is after the book. So we have this major sophisticated thing going on. There's run-ins with gremlins, gargoyles, vampires, and werewolves. He doesn't fight them all, but they all do make appearances. There's zombies, of course. It just has this huge, giant, rich history. It's like, I want to say it's kind of like a Lovecraftian Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is absolutely perfect, in my opinion. You actually get to see I'm not going to pronounce this creature from Lovecraft's name, but he's one of the big ones, and they make mention of the old gods. But I like how this unfolds. The dialogue is tremendous. It's super witty, it's super intelligent, and guys like Charles Holohan and Fred Ward and Clancy Brown can do it with their eyes closed. They just do it perfect. They just deliver it so well and so on the nose that they just know exactly who these characters are, and they know exactly how to deliver the dialogue. The back and forth that some of these actors have, like Fred Ward and Clancy Brown, is tremendous because you can tell they have a history. I really like Julianne Moore in it too. I think she's a nice, sophisticated character. David Warner is perfect. Everybody's perfect in this movie. I have no complaints about this movie whatsoever. The special effects are great. It gets violent and crazy at times too. The effects of the monsters is excellent. The gargoyles really cool, and everything like that. It's comedic too. It's funny. Like the dialogue's very funny. He runs into this old guy who's like somebody he's looking for used to live in his like apartment, and he's like working on a car, and they open the hood and there's all these gremlins. He's like, goddamn gremlins. He's like, in World War I, all we came back with was the clap. In World War II, we go over to Europe and we come back with these things. And he's talking about gremlins, which is great that it has like a call out to old school gremlins that used to like wreck machinery and mechanics and everything like that. So that's really great. Anyways, I thought this movie's tremendous. I thought the acting was great. I thought the story was great. Shout outs to Lovecraft are perfection. Dunwich, all sorts of things in here are shout outs to it. I thought it was strange that they do mix the Necronomicon with biblical kind of things at points. But anyways, I really liked it. Liked all the characters. Liked his basically His landlord, Fred Ward's landlord in here, Lovecraft's landlord, is really fun and tremendous as well. They have a good back and forth. Just lots of good interactions and everything. Tugwell's a great bad guy, and I love that they use magic. They use magic to kill people, and there's just lots of good scenes. Actually, one of the short order cooks that has a big fight scene actually played Michael Myers in a couple of the Halloweens. So highly recommended. Cast a Deadly Spell. It's streaming in Amazon. It's in HD. Watch it before it disappears, because I wish these HBO movies would get a nice release because they deserve it. Hitcher, Night Flyer, Cast a Deadly Spell, Surviving the Game. So much good stuff that I love that's not had a good release, and no Escape in the States at least. So yeah.
From the producer of Aliens and Terminator 2, L.A. in 1948.
How is it?
Bad.
It's always bad.
Something's coming, something ugly. Everyone wanted power.
I'll be in my hands by Thursday. I'm attending a conference, and this volume is the key to my presentation.
A conference that starts at midnight?
Everyone wanted control.
It's in the book, all right here. Promise, power, price.
What price? You're gonna be dead, Lovecraft. And I'm gonna be on top of the world. That should settle things once and for all about who was smart and who was a chump.
And everyone used magic. Black magic.
An Necronomicon. Must be some book.
Except Detective Lovecraft.
Damn it, Phil, everybody's got to compromise.
That's what I keep hearing.
And what makes you so special?
He's the right guy.
I'm serious.
And why are you wearing that hat?
But it's the wrong time.
Someone's throwing lesser demons at you, and you don't even carry a rabbit's foot.
I can handle it.
Well, I'm not worried about you, Phil. I'm worried about the people who might get in the way.
He's got 48 hours to save the world. Or what's left of it.
Phil, nothing in life's as funny as you think.
Fred Ward.
My collar may be a little frayed. Maybe I need a shoe shine. But nobody's got a mortgage on my soul. I own it. Free and clear.
Cast a Deadly Spell. The HBO original movie.
Okay, this next one is insane. It is by the director who did Tetsuo, the Iron Man, and it is Hiruko, the Goblin. I said that wrong, but I'm trying, guys. I really am. So Hiruko, the Goblin. This is a bizarre one, too, and it's going to take me 20 minutes to explain the plot. I don't know how to do these sometimes, but I really love this movie, too, because it's so different, and the mythology is so amazing and cool, and I don't really know too many movies like it. So Hiruko, the Goblin. Here we go. Okay, we have these kids. They start off in the school, and they're kind of screwing around, and one of the guys is infatuated with this girl, and seeing them make out, he actually falls on the ground, and he's like, and he starts complaining about it burning, and he's like, it happened yesterday, too. And that's kind of a weird setup. There's this kind of ghost hunter guy who is infatuated with the supernatural and everything like that. And in Asia, they call a lot of the creatures goblins, or it's more of a broad kind of term, but and it's kind of like Mexico. They don't have a name for ghosts and things like it. It's a little different from my understanding from watching these kind of movies. So he's kind of into supernatural things. He kind of has a haunted past. He lost a loved one, which happens to be this other young man's aunt who burned his back. So there's a weird relationship between them. He shows up, and he explains that he believes that this area is a spot for this giant mound where there's these kind of, ghosts. And it's a Hiruko, like kind of a goblin kind of creature, because I believe he found something earlier that points to this. So they start to snoop around, and before long, everybody starts to get picked off by these weird creatures, these weird-ass spider creature things that are crawling on the ground. They're terrifying, and what it is, it has spider legs, but it has a head. It looks like something from The Thing. This director feels like he's taking things from Sam Raimi and the way he shoots his camera with it flying in and out, taking things from David Cronenberg with the weird body horror in Tetsuo and this, and then taking things from John Carpenter with the weird tentacles and stuff and the heads crawling with spider legs. It's just like this weird mixture of all the best things, and I love the hell out of this one too. And it's also a supernatural kind of ghost story. So basically they start to fight these things off, and they realize that they are on top, the school's on top of this mound, and they need to get under there and seal the kind of tomb areas, my understanding. But it gets intense, it gets scary, and they're basically fighting these weird kind of creatures the whole time. But I like how it's shot. It gets insane. Like the camera angles are cool. If I remember kind of some over-the-top stuff, the monster stuff kind of freaked me out, and it gets large when they go underground. The idea, and it's also heartfelt. It's a really emotional core to this, about loss and about sacrificing and just the things of somebody being haunted, about what happened in the past. And it gets really kind of sentimental at the end, and kind of like touched my heartstrings. I'm not gonna lie, tugged at my heartstrings a little bit while watching this, and I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that at all, especially, even though Tetsuo is a little bit more heartfelt than one would expect between the two characters. There is some emotional connection between them. I do feel like his movies start off like super gross or crazy or weird, but they end up coming together at the end and being really kind of heartfelt at the same time. And this one was no different. I really like this, but there's this great iconic imagery of a bunch of heads with spiders, because that's what happens to you. There's a janitor who ends up helping them that's a little bit iffy in the gray area at first, but I don't know what to really... I like the music too. There's just not anything I really dislike about this movie. It was a first time watch. I was kind of blown away by it. Very impressive. I like Tetsuo, and I really like this one. I need to check this director's other movies out. I think he's having a box set from Aerocom. Really looking forward to that, but would really recommend checking out Hiruko the Goblin. Different, unique, and just very, very entertaining and good all around.
Oh, やべえ。本当に学校に5分なんかあんのかよ。少なくとも親父はそう信じ込んでたからな。
私の住む土地からこれまでの定説を全く覆してしまう古墳が見つかったのだ。
こっちはヒルコ？この地方に伝わる伝説の化け物。
危険なんだよ。
心配しなくていいから、俺が助けてあげるから。
Okay, guys, this next one is the Runestone. Yeah, VHS here. And again, we have another super weird movie. I had this VHS for years. I had heard about it for years. Always wanted to watch it. This is a super weird one. It kind of has some similarities to Hiruko the Goblin with the archaeologist kind of stuff going on. So I don't really know how to say this, but basically they discover something underground, this big kind of rock that has all these kind of things sculpted on it. And we realize that there was a group of individuals who were supposed to protect this, protect something to keep this monster from coming to life. There's a couple who are kind of directly affected by this thing. Somebody actually is possessed by it and turns into it. There's a time clock keeper who's supposed to stop everything. Really weird movie. The cast has a couple character actors that are fairly memorable. William Hickey is in here, Lawrence Tierney, and Peter Rygard, who is actually the cop in The Mask, which I'll never forget him in that, always being upset at everything that's happening around him. But he's actually really solid in this. He's a cop with a filthy mouth that can't stop cussing. Really funny. Has a lot of interactions with the lead character. But what happens here is, in this kind of art world, archaeological world mix, I don't know what the hell's going on with that. Basically, somebody is possessed by this stone, this runestone, and becomes this weird werewolf-like creature that is intense and scary. There's a lot of monster action. There's a lot of great monster action in the movie. Unfortunately, a lot of the kills are off screen. There's a couple funny moments, of course, as well, especially with the police officer and at the art kind of gallery scenario. But it's a little lackluster in the actual gore and delivery on the horror department. But like I said, the monster looks great. The story is really insane and weird, but I do think it's worth watching. I do think it has its moments that are kind of effective and different, and the plot's really weird and bizarre, and the lead characters are a little too boring for me. I do like the cop, and Lawrence Tierney has some good dialogue. He's like, it's a guy in a wolf suit. He's killing people. You know, he's typically Lawrence Tierney. He's in here a little bit longer than I expected, and William Hickey as well, like I enjoyed. And the monster, there's a lot of action, a lot more action than one would expect. The monster running around ripping people to pieces, but you don't see any of it. Like, there's cool scenes where the cops are having giant shootouts with it, but you don't get to see as much as you'd like. And again, the story is just it's just kind of weird, like archaeological, like supernatural stuff. that I don't necessarily love, to be honest. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. All in all, I think it's worth checking out. I don't think it's the strongest movie or anything like that, but I do think it has enough cool monster effects and some side characters and character actors that are enjoyable enough to make the Runestone something that I would suggest you could watch and enjoy, to be honest. But nothing necessarily perfect. I would give it a slight recommend, and I wish that maybe I feel stronger about it if it had a nice like Blu-ray release or something like that. But you know, Monster looks great.
In the last 1,000 years, man's civilization has come a long way.
Well, it's art, but I like it.
But his nightmares are as savage as ever.
This one's interactive.
It knows your innermost secrets.
The Runestone will promise you many things.
What's a Runestone?
Don't listen to anything it tells you.
It can sense your darkest desires.
You said you were waiting for your life to begin. Let's start here.
Make it stop!
I can't help you unless you help me.
It will promise you power you can only imagine.
Just who or what do you think chased you through the woods?
Well, it wasn't a maniac. It wasn't you.
But once you give in, there's no turning back.
In the last 2 days, most of what I've ever not believed in has been challenged. And I suddenly find myself in the middle of something I hardly know anything about.
Because once it awakens, there is no escape.
And this thing has killed about...
I know how many people it's killed.
13 centuries ago.
Heard you found something big.
Took a god to imprison it.
Do you have any idea of what you have found?
Today,
bingo,
it will take a miracle to destroy it.
So listen to me, I may be able to help you.
Nothing will stop that thing.
The Runestone.
Hammer time!
For all who are willing to pay the price, we invite you to go through the mirror of life.
Alright guys, what's up? It is Hammer Time. This is the second to the last of the Hammer Times, and this is The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. And Hammer's kind of like just doing whatever they can to survive, it seems. You know, after like, you know, the American Grindhouse Renaissance with like Night of the Living Dead and Last House on the Left, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, America got kind of gritty in the 70s. And Hammer was kind of holding on to a little bit of the gothic, almost cheesy or thriller style, and I just don't think it really was working as well in the box office or anything like that. I mean, I imagine they had some hits here, but they obviously were trying different things. We had the Horror of Frankenstein, which is trying to be more gory and comedic. And their movies did get a little bit more raunchy, even in the early 70s with, you know, Vampire Lovers and Vampire Circus. So they were definitely pushing that envelope of nudity and violence that just obviously can't compete with the mood of something like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Last House on the Left. And I think that's probably what the audience was looking for. Although some people probably missed this kind of gothic storytelling, and now when we look back on it, it's kind of like in fondness for sure.
Right.
So this is the last of the Dracula films. It's directed by Roy Ward Baker, which I do feel it's kind of sad that Terrence Fisher didn't get to send, you know, Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee out the door, even though Christopher Lee didn't even appear in this one,
Right.
so he didn't get to say goodbye to Peter Cushing in the Dracula series that he started directing. Roy Ward Baker had directed, I think, a couple of the other Dracula ones and a whole bunch of other movies, and I feel he directed Quatermass in the Pit, so I feel like he is a very capable director, especially when things get really really big, he's one of the better guys to go with. And The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, like I said, Hammer was trying new things. So this one is a co-production with the Shaw Brothers from Hong Kong, you know, the martial arts kind of movies and of all sorts of crazy stuff, Corpse Mania, and stuff like that. So it's a really weird mixture, almost East meets West. They did it with some Westerns and stuff like that. So this is a very bizarre combination here. It's a super weird movie. I guess in the 18th century, Dracula takes over the body of a Chinese priest. And then 100 years later or something, there's like still something going on in that village. So the group of brothers go to get help. From Peter Cushing, of Van Helsing, of course, to stop Dracula. They travel, and they must face against the Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires and Count Dracula himself in disguise.
So, is it 100 years later?
I think it is. So this one takes place in 1904, or somewhere around that time, which kind of confused me because, like, I'm trying to put the timeline together, and these ones, the Dracula movies, unlike the Frankenstein movies, do have some sort of chronological order to them.
Right.
Where you could, like, you could somehow patch them together and be like, these happen at different timelines with different Van Helsings, and it actually is a series. Well, the Frankenstein ones, it's like, we're just restarting, or it doesn't make any sense, or whatever. But this one, I'm having a hard time placing where it would take place, because I don't remember where, like, Taste of Blood or any of those ones actually took place in.
Right. Well, I mean, it's weird because, like, when we watch, what are the 70s ones?
Dracula, AD 1972, and Satanic Rites.
Yeah, so when you watch those, and they explain how Van Helsing dies in a carriage accident in killing Dracula, so I don't think that this is somehow a continuation.
It is, but that's a different Van Helsing.
No.
It would have to be. Because this is 1904, and that was probably maybe his great-great-grandpa. Maybe this is just his great-grandpa. In 72, that'd be 2 generations removed.
Maybe.
So I feel like if you did some legwork and did some major research, you could somehow kind of be like, it kind of makes sense. Or if you just leave your brain at the door for the timeline. I mean, I'm gonna.
You have to, because they get Dracula's blood in the carriage. But how did they get it in the carriage to resurrect him in England when he's also been killed in China?
I don't know.
There is no timeline. The timeline is
It makes sense. It's magic.
It's magic. It's magic vampirism.
Regardless, in that aspect, I love this one. This is one of the most bonkers movies ever made as far as Hammer is concerned, and I think that it's insane. Peter Cushing looks about 107 years old, and he's still doing some of his own stunts. It looks like grabbing a flame torch and everything, and a flame torch.
A flaming torch.
Yeah. A homemade torch. But what happens is, like, the brothers, there's a bunch of them, and there's a sister, there's 8 of them. They all have their own unique, like, martial arts style. They're kind of brushed over. They're more so just extensions of their weapon as their character, most of them. But not all of them. And Cushing has a son in here, and there's also kind of a rich woman who's like a traveler who wants to help on this expedition to go and fight, the Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. And that legend is basically, they resurrect these vampires or something like that in China, and they overtake the town, and they all wearing these masks and these bat belts. Sounds like a Batman thing, but they're all wearing these bat belts and this golden mask, and they run around their different, like, cloaks and everything, and they like kill and pillage the villagers. But they remind me of Skeletor when he's in, like, his super metal at the end of Masters of the Universe, because they're just like this a lot. You'll see him like this with this gold mask. You'll see their teeth. They're like, it's very fun.
And they kind of like they act like pirates. Like, they just rush into a village and, like, rape and pillage, and they have, like, a horde of zombies, doing
like Army
bidding.
of Darkness, I feel like, took some inspiration from this, all these skeletons running out. And also, another thing, too, is they definitely come from the school from Alberto Lenzi kind of monsters.
Yeah.
Like Nightmare City, where it's like, I can't kill this woman without ripping her shirt off first. So they're like, arr! And then they bite their necks. I love Nightmare City because it's so shameless, and this one is definitely shameless to a certain extent. They're like, well, we're just going to have half these women that are being sacrificed on these, like, pillars, or like these like slabs, naked, for just they're shirtless, like, so they're laying there with their breast out. But there's a bunch of different kind of intermingling and relationships where like Peter Cushing's son falls in love with the sister, the Chinese sister martial artist, and one of the Asian martial artists, the main one, kind of falls in love with the Eastern European kind of rich funder of the project. But there's a lot of action, and it doesn't really stop.
Yeah, they keep moving in this. There's maybe 3 or 4 battles with the vampires, in different locations, different settings. There's also in the beginning a trail of like bandits or mobsters after them to like restore their honor. It's really good. It does keep up the pace really well.
You know what this movie is, and I just realized it? The Magnificent Seven.
Probably, yeah.
It really is the Magnificent Seven. I don't know, I just put that together, but it kind of feels like that. Even the villagers at the end come out and start fighting the vampires. It's bloody, it has some nudity, there's decent martial arts. I seen some other, more, a lot of people would give me the martial arts movies to review, and I feel like that stuff was a little bit more choreographed and well done and complicated than this, but I still think this stuff is very satisfying, and there's a lot of people in makeup and stuff, so I feel like some of the martial arts would be a little bit taken back when you got a guy in a bunch of makeup on a horse with a sword, so it's a little more complex, but it's not done as complex. Like some of the stuff they were doing in those other martial arts movies I felt was just a little bit better.
Well, like, the siblings were all tied to like their weapons, and like the weapon props they carry are just these big, hulky, silver, they look like
golden axe props.
Yeah, spray painted like styrofoam. So yeah, they fight with the weapons, but really it's just them kind of like holding it and like more like kicking with like carrying 2 axes or something. But like some of the other like the actual combat's really good. It's just the weapons. It's like put those down, guys.
It's cheap.
Yeah.
But there's also like a lot of characters get killed. It doesn't pull its punches. Tons of people get killed, and characters that are fairly well established, which I actually like too. So I think this one's really one of the more standout ones, and I know a lot of people are probably like, this isn't like a Dracula. This was awesome because it's different. I'm sorry, I already saw it 8 other times. I already saw it 8 other times. Two were modern, and then I saw that 5 other times. And as good as those are, I feel like this one is probably the shining star in the Dracula series for me. Not the most well made, but just the most entertaining. I mean, Brides, I think, probably has the distinction of being the most well-made. I think Brides is probably objectively the best one, while something like Taste the Blood of Dracula is one of the more fun ones, and so is this one. I would recommend checking this one out for sure. I think Roy Ward Baker did a good job with the direction. The guy that got to replace Lee is not very good.
No,
but he's very minimal use on purpose.
Right.
They definitely did that whole, like, he's turning into an Asian guy, a Chinese guy on purpose.
The priest, and I feel like I can't remember if the guy that they got to play Lee, if he comes back in the ending.
He does. He does.
He does. Okay. Yeah. Was this your? Where would you rank this with all the Draculas?
Best or favorite?
Both.
At the very top.
At the very top.
One of the tops. Top 3.
I'd say it might be my second favorite.
I can't.
Third favorite.
It's Bride's, Taste, and this one are my 3 favorites.
I really like the modern day ones.
I did like Satanic too. Over AD. I know people don't like Satanic, but I do like that one too.
I really like Brides, but this one was really fun.
The most famous, the most popular one's Dracula Prince of Darkness, and that's my least favorite.
Is that number 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. It's I don't hate it. It's
that's
just...
not the couple, right?
Yeah.
And Dracula goes in the water and he gets like overswept.
And again, somebody made a comment about they were elaborating on because we were laughing about the running water stopping the vampires. So they elaborated on it. They said, well, it stops them, and then they stake them. And I understand the concept there because even in Night of the Demons, like you can't cross a running stream if you're evil, like the demons can't. That's why it's dug under Hull House. And I like that idea. But the thing with the Dracula movies is they keep introducing a new method to fight Dracula every movie. And by the end, like the bush, it's just so stupid. I know he was staked after he was in the bush, but it's just like, I made a joke. I said, I'm surprised that they didn't incorporate Cheese Whiz to stop him by the end of this. Like, it just gets like, maybe crisp because it's Britain. It's like, oh, Dracula hates the crisp. Get the crisp away from Count Dracula. Get him the crisp. Because it's like, it literally is everything. Like, oh, what are we going to do? It's pretty much the same movie. Well, I had a new way to kill Dracula this time.
What about in like the 70s, in the 81, they like delivered him like a pizza with a lot of garlic on it, and like he doesn't know, so he's just kind of like paralyzed a little bit.
Like,
but he wants to eat more.
Or he's just staring at it. He's like... and then they come up and stake him. But I understand the concept. It's just like when you think about it in terms of Dracula being a highly intelligent creature that survived and managed to come back several times, that he would have his daughters or his vampire women under the basement with a sprinkler system right underneath that you could easily trigger and freeze them is kind of dumb. It's really dumb. to be honest. And it's like, well, people be like, well, Dracula didn't know. Dracula knew about running water because he was smart enough in modern times to become a freaking rich billionaire politician to pull the strings. So it's stupid. It's very stupid. It's just it's a bad way to add something.
Got it.
I got to stop Dracula with the squirt gun. What is this, Ernest Scared Stupid when they're spraying the trolls with milk? Which I love, but still, because that makes sense, and there's only one way to stop them, right?
Right.
I mean, this one, there's like 30 ways. Regardless, I enjoy the Dracula series, and I think it's much more strong. It's stronger than the fucking Frankenstein series.
Oh, absolutely.
And the Mummy series.
Of the Catermass aside, of the series that we've watched.
Karstein.
Yeah, I guess. Those are probably the best. But Dracula's the second best. Yeah.
No, Quatermass is the best, then Karstein, then Dracula.
I mean, Quatermass is just amazing.
Yeah,
and it is the best. But.
So we're going to read from John Stanley's Creature Features here. And this is Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. He's got it at 1973. I always feel like his years are like a year off. 3 out of 5. Co-production between Hammer and the Shaw Brothers of Hong Kong results in a satisfying sukiyaki, which is Japanese, as we had this conversation, an east-west blending of martial arts, kung fu, and vampire bloodletting. In 1804, Count Dracula inhabits the body of a Chinese priest in order to resurrect vampire corpses in samurai armor who terrorize villagers. Flash ahead to 1904, Peter Cushing as Van Helsing joins his heroic son, Swedish beauty Julie Ege, in low-cut gowns, blouses, and high-heeled boots, and a trope of Chinese warriors to destroy the demons. The action is non-stop, the fights are tremendous, jobs of choreography, and the monster makeup effective. A rousing entertainment. Directed by Roy Ward Baker from the imaginative script by Don Houghton, a.k.a. Dracula and the Seven Golden Vampires and the Seven Brothers Meet Dracula. Robin Stewart, David Chang, John Forbes, Robertson, and yeah, it was put out by Sinister, Genesis for Media Electronic as the Seven Brothers Meet Dracula. I want a blaxploitation movie called The Seven Brothers Meet Dracula now.
There was we were watching the beginning of the Seven Brothers version, and like they cut the film differently.
It's differently cut.
And one of the opening shots, it shows actually a clip from the ending where they're riding off with
You would never know though if you didn't just watch it.
Yeah, that's true, but I think she was the only character in blue. So
yeah, but there was one of the girls on the slab was in blue, a different color blue, but
different blue, different. Her breasts were fully exposed. I mean, but I'm not here for that. Well, I'm about to read you guys Leprechaun. There we are. Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. 3.5.
2.5, bro.
2.5.
This guy can't even read.
I can.
Out of 4. Out of 4.
He says 1974.
See, we got it.
Okay. So, Hammer's last Dracula movie was this oddly entertaining blend of vampires and kung fu with the Count, weakly impersonated by Forbes Robertson when Christopher Lee withdrew from the part, possessing the body of an evil Chinese high priest and heading up a deadly cult of masked, rotted vampires, battled by Dr. Van Helsing Cushing, who's on a lecture tour of China. Much better than you'd imagine, also releases Dracula and the Seven Golden Vampires, and in a heavily cut version, as the Seven Brothers Meet Dracula. That review is actually 2 sentences.
2 run-on sentences? Well,
No.
mine was a couple really long sentences too, but they weren't run-ons. It was just very long.
It was literally just 2 sentences.
All right, hey. We forgot the Shout Factory DVD, Scream Factory DVD, Blu-ray. I mean, looked really good. It had some features on there we were watching, and it was this one guy who really enjoyed the movie, and it was this British gentleman, and it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Do you want to do it?
I can't. I don't know if I can.
He was like this. He's like, "Is The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires the best Hammer movie ever made? No. Is it the best 70s Hammer movie ever made? Hell yes." And he kept saying hell yes. No, but the way he did it, it was perfect. Because he set up his timing was impeccable. He was like, "Is it the best Hammer horror movie ever made? No." He was like, "No."
like get Edinburgh out of you. Just
it was so honest. It was so honest. But I enjoyed his little talks about it and everything like that. It looked good. Hammer did a good job with the West one. I mean, Scream Factory. They've released a bunch of these, and I bought all of them. And so yeah, there's only a couple. I can't believe Curse of Frankenstein has not had a Region 1 Blu-ray. Region A. The first Frankenstein is not
Really?
one of the best Frankensteins has not had a Blu-ray release here. It's upsetting because all the other ones have.
That's weird.
Yeah. Next week is To the Devil a Daughter, the final one. I think it's a co-production with Mrparka. It's got Richard Widmark in it, and Christopher Lee, and Natasha Kinski. That's Klaus Kinski's daughter, and she's 14, and she's naked in it, which sounds very unpleasant and weird.
So this was our Cushing send-off then?
Yeah, bye-bye Cushing.
Bye-bye. He's joined Michael Ripper.
Unfortunately. And Thorley Walters and all those guys.
And so next week is our last one with Christopher Lee.
And our last horror movie from Hammer. There is one that, another Hammer movie, I think, but it's like a comedy thriller, and it does have Herbert Lom in it, which is a shame, because I would have liked to watch that one.
Herbert Lom was in The Phantom, right?
Yeah.
That was, okay. So, I know Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing goes on to do the TV show. Does Christopher Lee as well?
I don't remember. I wonder if he did. No, it was a Hammer horror series. He's in one called The Silent Scream with Brian Cox, and that's a really good one.
Okay.
Maybe down the line we'll watch a couple of the Hammer horror shows, just, like a couple years from now or something.
Maybe not.
No, but, yeah. Oh, geez, who else was in, like I said, did we forget to mention Delhelm Elliott? No, he's in next week's episode, next week's movie too. So I did ask last week a question, what segments they want to see in our End of Year Hammer. Some people said the bloodiest, some people said top Peter Cushing movies, top Lee movies, stuff like that, top 10, the best non-horror ones, and I was like, we didn't watch enough non-horror ones, I don't think.
Right.
But all sorts of categories, best screenplay. Somebody said, like, bloodiest is going to be very difficult for me. Somebody said best tatas, which is...
I don't know.
I mean, it's hard to remember the best tatas and the bloodiest because it's been so many movies ago. I remember watching some and being like, that's pretty violent, that's pretty explicit.
Best tata was probably Ingrid Pitt.
It's got to be Vampire Lovers. But we'll do this. We're going to do that whole End of the Year show next time.
Vampire Lovers.
Countess Dracula?
What's the
She's
one where
only in 2.
Yeah, Countess
Vampire
Dracula.
Lovers. She's in 2.
No, I like the one where she is the old lady and
yeah, that's Countess Dracula.
That's the one with the best tatas.
The best tatas is Vampire Lovers.
No. And you had asked me about the bloodiest. I know we want to talk about this next week, but it's when I told you, it's like it's very hard to think of what the bloodiest Hammer movie is because we're ruined by movies that have come after Hammer.
I mean, you see Dead Alive, and you're just
you see Dead Alive, you see any Tarantino movie. It's like
they're all pretty bloody.
Yeah, so it's hard to. The Hammer blood doesn't shock you because it's. And I've seen so much worse.
And I want to be brutally honest. Like when I think back, we watched 60 Hammer movies in a year, back to back to back, and a lot of them share similar plots. So some of these I had with me for years. I had seen them before, so like rewatching them, I was like, I remember this one fairly well after I put it in. But a couple of them, like they just like mixed together, and it's very hard to remember exactly what the hell's going on. Like I know it's gonna be weird, but I don't recommend watching 60 Hammer movies within a year. I feel like you watch them sparingly and they're much more enjoyable because a lot of them are similar. Unless you're going to mix it up and watch like Scream of Fear and like Taste the Blood of Dracula, 2 completely different ones, and I think that makes a great feature. But watching like 8 Draculas and 3 Frankensteins back to back would just be a jumbled mess to you.
I mean, I don't want to say it's a chore, but it's like they do blur together, and we're looking at 40 years of history, more or less, and we've condensed it down into, 152-week period.
It's actually more like 20. We covered about 20 years, 56 to like 76.
Well, was first KMS only 56?
Yeah.
I thought it was earlier.
No, but I mean, Hammer was on before that, but we started with the Quatermass experiment, which I think was the right move.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And we end with To the Devil a Daughter. So
is there more?
Before?
Yeah.
Like maybe like thriller kind of film noir stuff, but not horror. Not really horror. They don't even consider that one the opening of the horror. They consider the Horror of Dracula and the Curse of Frankenstein kind of the beginning, which I think that some of those other ones are horror too. Especially in the 50s. Sci-fi is basically horror then.
I guess we could talk about this more next week, but my favorite have been the science fiction stuff.
They're different,
They are different.
All right, so we'll see you next week for To the Devil a Daughter, and make sure you stick around for the big Hammer End show. I'm not sure what we'll do exactly, but we'll figure it out. There'll be categories.
Can we smash it with an actual hammer in here?
Smash what?
No. The environs.
The what?
Environs, like the environment, like the surrounding space, the atmosphere, the energy.
The ambience?
Yeah,
Can't smash
sure.
ambience. Isn't that kind of just like a general mood?
No, you can smash it. I've been in a few situations where the ambience
Smashing
has been
ambience. Certain people will smash ambience.
Yeah, definitely.
We're out of here.
Bye.
From Warner Brothers, who crashed the action barrier with Enter the Dragon, comes a new dimension in black belt thrills. As Hammer, masters of horror, and the Shaw Brothers, masters of kung fu, join forces to create the first martial arts horror spectacular ever filmed.
The whispered word is vampire. The horror is real and very close. What you must understand is that they are already dead. I'll fall before them, and you too will be eternally damned.
The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. Starring Peter Cushing and Julie Edge. Filmed entirely on location in Hong Kong. And co-starring David Chang, a new Kung Fu champion in the Black Belt Hall of Fame.
Strike at their heart!
My brothers cannot survive another attack, Professor.
We've destroyed half their number. We know these creatures can die. Don't give up now.
It's a fight to the death against the sevenfold forces of evil. As Hammer and the Shaw Brothers together create the first martial arts horror spectacular ever filmed.
Okay, guys, let's get into these questions of the week. Brian James Murata, I know you answer questions and wasn't sure where to submit, but I have always wondered what you do for work. I work in a factory. I do truck parts. Yep, it's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. I'd love to do something with movies. I'd love to do anything but that if it paid the same. Dan the cameraman. Have there been any developments on your second directorial feature? No, there has not. I really haven't been pushing for it. You know, right now especially is a time that I don't even want to think about it, to be honest. I did direct a second movie, but I directed half of it, an anthology in Halloween Spookies. If you want to look for it on YouTube, it's there. I directed the wraparound and the final segment, The Familiars. So if you like Slimy Little Bastards, this one I think shares some similarities to it that I think you would enjoy. I think it's better made, to be honest. And Dustin Mills did the other two shorts. So there hasn't been any. I had a couple ideas and I wrote some of them down and everything like that. Worked kind of like a half-assed script and everything, but I never pursued it any further than that. Who is a filmmaker you love that if you were cast in a film of theirs would be intimidated to work with, live or dead? I'll probably Sam Peckinpah. I really, because you want to be on eggshells to a certain extent, because like I hear he fired so many people. Like in the Man of Iron, you hear so many funny things. It's just like L.Q. Jones is like, he fired me 17 times. Like he'd fired everybody, and it's just so funny. But also George Romero, just anyone I really love that I wouldn't want to let down. But that would probably be it. But nowadays, I feel like I wouldn't even care if somebody started screaming at me like that. I would just leave. I'd be like, adios, see you, I'm out. Are you a fan of James Rolfe's movie reviews, Monster Madness series? I'm going to say this sounds bad. I don't watch that much YouTube. To be honest, I listen to a lot of podcasts. Occasionally I'll watch guys like Mood 616 and like Extra the Mutilator, but I like to listen to them. Like I don't even like watch the videos because I'm so like used to watching movies. If I can watch something, it's always a movie. I used to be able to listen to YouTube a little bit more, but I never really got into James Ralph or Cinema Snob. I watch a video here and there, and but I never really watched a lot or anything like that. So no, I'm not really familiar with it. I know he's really huge and does very well for himself. Nick Mua, do you ever fear you'll run out of space to store your films? I have run out of space before, but I've always managed to build more shelves or find somewhere to put them. Right now, I feel like I have a decent amount of space left, and I could condense or do something different, but I'm like 85% capacity right now in this room, so that could go quick, depending. Is there a film or even a genre that watches a guilty pleasure? As you get older, sometimes you'll feel like you're watching like a really trashy or shameless movie that's just like exploitation to the T, and you're just like, this is so tasteless. You're like, I shouldn't be enjoying this, and you smile, you grin the grin. Like, it's not poorly made, it's just exploitative as fuck. So you're like, this is so trashy, but in the same kind of way you enjoy it. So I guess that would be maybe a guilty pleasure now. Or there are other movies that you're like, this is made like shit, but I love every second of it, So I don't know if there's a genre in itself, but sometimes like the really like Naked Vengeance, that's probably one, like the really shoddy made, or not shoddy made, but really maybe slightly ridiculous rape revenge movies or extremely ridiculous rape revenge movies are kind of a guilty pleasure because they're enjoyable, but at the same time they're brain rot. But hey, I enjoy it. Which film had a lousy reputation but managed to surprise you pleasantly when you finally saw it? I know movies that have a reputation that are really sloppy, but I saw them when I was young, and I've always loved them. Hudson Hawk, I always loved. Waterworld, people hate that, and I like it. I had no problem with it. I'm trying to think of one that everybody hated, that when I finally saw it, I was like, it's not even that bad. Oh, geez, Chronicles of Riddick. People hated that. I was like, it's fine, isn't it? Yeah, I didn't think it was that bad. I enjoyed it. It was entertaining. I haven't watched it in a long time, but there's a lot like that where everybody's like, that's the worst thing ever. Or Rob Zombie's Halloween I enjoyed, and Halloween 2. Maybe I saw those when they came out, though. So there's just lots of stuff that people hate and hate and hate, and you see it, and you're like, it's fine. Not the best movie ever made, but what is? Then we have some answers. Last week I asked you guys basically what you want to see in the Hammer top 10 or Hammer end of year show. Some categories. Dan the cameraman we got best tits and Hammer movies. We gotta know about those tatas. Tatas is a funny word because my grandpa always used it. Tim Hayes, for Hammer Horror Year End Show, best actors, best actresses, and best directors. Nick Mua, for the Hammer Horror End of the Year Show, I'd love to see a best screenplay, as a movie often stands or indeed falls with the script. Also a best Christopher Lee performance and best Peter Cushing performance. Lastly, maybe which decade was the worst for Hammer. Mark Humphreys, top 10 vampire films and top 10 non-vampire films. Sam Edwards, top 10 Hammer horror films. Jason Fetters, favorite non-Dracula vampire films. Kaiser Soza, top 10 underrated Hammer films. Derek B, best side characters and best kill scenes. David Luton, top 10 Hammer films, best director, best Cushing/Lee performance, favorite Dracula, favorite Frankenstein, favorite non-horror. Brandon M. Salkill, a top 10 non-horror would be pretty neat. It's a side of Hammer some don't explore often. Dustin Mills, bloodiest. Scott Fox, Dracula and their best stars, Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. Ron Munster, I am kind of curious to know which Hammer film has the most nudity. Watson, top 10 times that Peter Cushing was a fucking gangsta. That would be great. We should just do top 10 Peter Cushing stunts. Jonathan Wilhelm, best prop use. And then we have some information. I'm going to read this because Tim Hayes actually did some research for me, and he posted, because I was talking about Roger Corman. I was like, I know he didn't have the rights to, he wasn't running New World Pictures or New World Video at one point, but he actually found what time he actually left the company. Tim Hayes, I found Roger Corman no longer owned New World Pictures by 1985. I think he stayed on as a technical advisor then. In 1984, he still was producing movies for them, such as Suburbia, Love Letters, and The Warrior, and The Sorceress. Funny thing, even though he has no longer owned the company by 1985, there seemed to be a little things still tying the company to Roger Corman. Elaine Githdos, who's in both Gas and Student Nurses for Roger Corman, appeared in Angel. So I think sometime in 1984, Roger is no longer the owner, but still might have had some casting decisions. Susan Tyrrell, Andy Warhol's dad, and another New World picture, would appear in the first 2 Angel movies. Then I believe David Dakota, part of the craft service crew on Angel, was first hired by Corman as a production assistant at New World Pictures. Then some post-Corman New Worlds titles, such as House, have Corman listed as uncredited executive producer on the Internet Movie Database page. Unknown actress Eunice Bolt, who was in the Corman cut of Island of the Fish People called Screamers, while her sister Faye Bolt, another unknown actress, was in Star Crystal. After Corman was gone, both actresses look like twins, but with different hair colors. I thought maybe they were in the same person at first, but guessing they're sisters. And then he also mentions about some stuff about Savage Island, which I was like, what is this, like old Italian prison movie cut into something else? So he says, the Shout Factory DVD of Savage Island looks much better than the Full Moon one. Both are sourced from videotape, but the colors are more natural and don't seem to bleed on the Shout Factory DVD. The movie was sourced from 2 different English-dubbed foreign language women in prison flicks that Charles Band bought and recut into Savage Island. The Linda Blair scenes just being wrapped around bits Charles Band shot, while the women in prison bits were redubbed and re-edited bits from Hotel Paradise 1980 and Escape from Hell 1980. That's why those guys from Escape from Hell were in it. I knew that that opening stuff was definitely reshot. You could tell big time. But for the question of the week, I want to ask you guys, what is your top 5 1991 horror flicks? Top 5. Put 5 only. I'm going to add them all together and give you guys an outcome on what they are. If you put more than 5, I'm not going to count them. I'm not going to tally them. But your top 5, okay? So your number 1 will get 5 points. Your number 2 will get 4 points, and yada, yada, yada. And the ones with the highest points will be listed as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'll list all of them. Maybe I'll do a top 10 for you guys. I'm curious what you guys think the top horror films of 1991 are. I know everyone's just going to be Silence of the Lambs, right? Isn't it going to be? So I guess we're going to... No, you know what? First, let's just do the brief, quick top 25 of 1985.
Biggest piece of meat in the game.
Let me ask you a question, kid. Did you see that movie, Night of the Living Dead?
Fresh bodies, fresh bodies.
What you love is the feeling when you're stopping our life.
And he is not a welcome visitor.
What the hell happened to Rosemary?
You want a silver bullet, huh?
Is reborn in the all-new Godzilla 1985.
Perfectly normal for insects to be slightly telepathic.
Yeah, it's normal for insects. But am I normal?
Sandy.
Horror has found a new home. There is no mercy.
Well, you just pissed me off.
Well, if that's the way you feel, forget it, Vic. Just forget it. But I think you're really out of line.
I hit the fucking brain!
scare you to pieces. Fright Night. Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. Freddy's Revenge. House. Cut and run. Demons. Day of the Dead. The Return of the Living Dead.
Your journey ends here. Welcome to Fright Night. For real.
This is going to be brief. Like I said, if you want an elaborate list, I would suggest going to the 22 Shots podcast and listening to the top 10 and listening to 11 to 25. But if you want to see them in more elaborate, there are two different podcasts up there. So number 25 coming in for 1985 is Murder Lust. I love the hell out of this one. Steve Belmont, really good creep. Thought the basically research into a serial killer was well done. Then we have 24, we have Midnight Hour, great TV movie, tremendous cast, I love the hell out of it. I reviewed all these, so if you want elaborate reviews, go find them. 23 is Cut and Run by Ruggiero Deodato, great movie, love the cast, make sure you watch the uncut version, really violent, really catchy music. Number 22, Medium. Great Polish movie. Really surprised how it was done and how well done it and everything it was, because that kind of story normally wouldn't intrigue me, but the way it unfolded like a mystery kind of police procedural almost was tremendous. 21, Cat's Eye, a great anthology with Drew Barrymore, James Woods, Alan King. Great cast, very fun, very entertaining. Number 20, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. Really innovative and crazy, dark Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Love it. 19, Life Force, really big Tobe Hooper movie. It just gets crazy at the end, almost like a big budget 85 Quatermass movie with a lot of nudity. Then we have 18, The Stuff, Larry Cohen's Stuff, lots of great satire and social about messages about consumerism in it. Michael Moriarty's great, Paul Sorvino's very funny in it. Then we have 17, Return to Oz, just thought it was very creepy and scary and just really cool and loved it. 16, Boys Next Door, thought this was a really great thriller. I thought that the casting was great with Maxwell Caulfield. I thought it was interesting. I thought the opening caught your attention. Really liked it. Then again on these, I've decided to include on the bottom 11 through 25, not all horror movies, more so maybe some exploitation and thrillers. In the top 10, I've included only horror. Then number 15, we have The New Kids by Sean Cunningham. Great revenge movie, loved it. Great cast, just really big and entertaining revenge movie at the end. Good cast of baddies. Number 14, we have Confessions of a Serial Killer. Excellent movie. Robert Burns has a tremendous performance as the Henry Lee Lucas basically of it. Just fits to the real story, is closer than Henry, although it's not accurate anymore, we know that, but just creepy and unsettling. 13, The Doctor and the Devils. Stephen Ray is so good in this, but Jonathan Pryce steals the show as Burke and Hare type characters. Great stuff. Freddie Francis directed. Just loved the hell out of it. The atmosphere, the production design was top notch and great. Then we have 12, Death Wish 3. Gotta give it up for Charles Bronson, one of the most fun Death Wish movies there is. Completely ridiculous. And the towns that Death Wish take place in are just insane places. I feel like Hobo with the Shotgun was in the same area. Then we have 11, Come and See, from the Soviet Union. Just an insane, depressing, dark, bleak look at war. Like I said on the podcast, war is hell and hell is whore, so come and see. Loved it. First time watch. Really, probably if it was a more horror, if it was, if I could say it was more of a horror movie, it would have made my top 10. So then we have number 10, Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. I love it. I know it's not Jason. I don't care. Fun cast, super sleazy, mean-spirited, just sleazy, fun. I like it. And it makes me laugh. It puts me in tears. Then we have 9, Silver Bullet. Love the small town feel. Love that it feels like a summer vacation movie for me and everything. A lot of nostalgia. 8, Vampire Hunter D. Love this one. Monster mash. Really fast paced. Great music. Love the mixture of things. 7, House. Another one that brings back tons of memories as a kid. I like the story. I love Big Ben. I like how the house can manipulate things, the special effects. Just love the hell out of this. George Wendt for the win. Then we have 6, Fright Night. Of course, got to have Fright Night on there. Great cast, great music. Just really well done horror movie. Probably one of the most professional movies of 85. 5, we got Stuart Gordon's Reanimator. Love the hell out of Reanimator. How can you hate Reanimator? Very iconic, very gory, very well done on a budget. Very one of the cheapest movies of the year as far as the big heavy ones are concerned, and it did tremendous. Number 4, it was tremendous. I mean, Dario Argento's Phenomenon. I love this movie. Just so weird and crazy. How many movies have a girl who can control bugs, a killer chimpanzee, a whacked out killer, Dario Nicolodi, Donald Pleasance, just Jennifer Connelly, just great, crazy Dario Argento stuff. Number 3 is Lamberto Bava's Demons. Oh my god, I love this movie so much. The gore, the most heavy metal movie of all time. It's just, and I don't normally love metal in movies, horror movies, but for some reason it works in the Italian ones like Phenomenon and Demons, and it's just perfect. Everything about it is perfect. Number 2 is Return of the Living Dead. It's my second favorite horror movie of all time, probably my second favorite movie ever made. So I love that it plays on Night of the Living Dead so perfectly. I love the comedy. I love everything about it. Love the cast. Love the dialogue. Love everything. It's just perfect. Everything about it's perfect. And number 1 is my favorite film of all time. I'm wearing the shirt. It's Day of the Dead. Perfect. Romero, my favorite Romero movie, my favorite movie in general. You guys heard the commentary about it. If you've been listening to this, you've seen the review of it. What can I say about Day of the Dead? My favorite cast, my favorite characters, just everything about it I love. Love the soundtrack. Love Sarah, Steele, Rhodes, Rickles, Logan, Bub, everything. John, McDermott. I love it so much. But yeah, that is my top 25 of 1985. Now let's hop into the update. If you wanted a more elaborate list, or you want me to go in depth about these, I've reviewed them all in the past year or so, less than a year, and I was on the podcast, the top 10 and the top 11 to 25, and I did a commentary for Day of the Dead. So if you want more information on any of these, just check it out over there, because there's tons of stuff to look for. So let's hop into this update. Okay, here we go. This is a decent size update. We have a couple from 88 Films. This is Amazonia, the Catherine Miles story. I watched this and was kind of pleasantly surprised on the rewatch for 85. Enjoyed it. Didn't have the Blu-ray. Ended up grabbing it. There's no US release, but this movie's really trashy and fun. And like I said, it did have a heartfelt moment. Then we have Beatrice Cenci, which is a Lucio Fulci movie. I think it's aka Conspiracy of Torture. Is that the right title for this one? Or is that the Bava movie? I think it is called that. I've never seen this Fulci movie, but it's Fulci, so I got to grab it, right? Oh, I wish I wouldn't have shown that. That's pretty gnarly on the back. Okay, but I did it, so we're going to stick with it. Then we have Brothers Till We Die, which is Polizia Tezzi with Tomas Milan. Don't know much about this one, but sounded cool. Umberto Lenzi movie, so yeah, why not? And then we have a couple Mill Creeks I picked up. Hard Hunted, the Andy Sedaris film. I got to complete these Andy Sedaris movies, guys. I know I started this, and I'm going to finish them. We're going to watch all the Andy Sedaris movies, right? We're gonna. Then, of course, we have Fit to Kill. That's right. I haven't watched an Andy Sedaris movie in a while. Danger never looks so good. That's right. And then we have Document of the Dead by Roy Frumkes. This is the longer version, and it has the original version of it as well. This is the Synapse. Did not have this one, so I was like, man, I need to grab this. I don't know why I don't have it on Blu-ray or DVD, but yeah. Then we have The Entity. This is a Shout Factory release. I was never a huge fan of this one, to be honest, but I wanted to give it a shot because everyone loves this movie, and I just never had a connection to it. I don't know what it was. Yeah. Then we have The Stand. It was on sale. Haven't watched this in years. Mick Garris TV movie. Huge TV movie. Remember watching this with my mom. Me and her loved it back in the day. My mom was a big Stephen King fan. Yeah, but I remember a lot of this one. It's kind of hard to forget. Then we have some from the Kino sale. We have High Point, Richard Harris, Christopher Plummer, Beverly D'Angelo. Never seen this one. I think this is Scorpion. Oh, it's a Code Red. Sold from Kino. Looks like it's got a nice little cast in there. And then we have Being Different, which looks like a documentary. Don't know much about it, to be honest. Narrated by Christopher Plummer. That's 2 Christopher Plummers in a row. Another Code Red. Yeah, but I'm interested in this. Hopefully it's not too exploitative, but hopefully it's interesting. And then we have The Dirt Bike Kid, which I think I might have saw as a kid. Or is this like the same kid in like every kid's movie back in the day? I feel like it is. Is that the kid from The Christmas Story? But anyways, he looks very familiar. This whole thing looks familiar. But yeah, that is The Dirt Bike Kid from Scorpion. And then we have Duel at Diablo with James Gardner and Cindy Poitier. So hopefully this is cool stuff. Western. Love Westerns. Why the hell not? There we go. Oop! There goes one. And then we have Scissors, which is a 91 movie I wanted to pick up. It's got a nice cast. Sharon Stone, Steve Railsback, Michelle Phillips, Ronnie Cox. Yeah, it's listed as horror, so I wanted to check it out. I passed on buying this one so many times that I was like, I gotta get it now. So that's Scissors. I guess we're gonna hop back to the video. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching, and as always, you have a good one.